the daily life of a secret agent in American TV series. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Morning Run Episode. Hey, Ron, why are you here? Max was surprised. Why are you in this neighborhood? As you can see, I'm jogging in the morning. Ron swung his arms and made a running motion, but his feet remained in place without moving. Hey, Subeo? Caroline's pony recognized Ron, snorted, and rubbed against him affectionately. If I remember correctly, you should live in Pasadena. Don't tell me you ran from there to downtown Los Angeles early in the morning. Max showed an expression of sudden enlightenment. You are planning to date Caroline, right? Ron put his hand on Max's shoulder. Why can't it be a date with you, me? How is it possible? I'm not a princess who came down from the earth. Max's words inevitably brought out a strong sense of sourness. Ron lowered his head and gently kissed Max on the head. The latter's body trembled slightly, but did not resist. Ron thought this was a good start. I don't know how to explain it to you. I really came here for a morning run. As I was running, I felt that the road was a little familiar. Really, Ron said helplessly. I have been staying in a hotel for the past 2 days and have attended 2 celebration parties in a row. Hotel? Max raised his voice. Are you talking about the Marriott International Hotel across the road? Yes, Ron answered in confusion. At the same time, he had a vague feeling of uneasiness in his heart, but he didn't know where this feeling of uneasiness came from. Ron, Max used an angry tone, that's the Marriott International Hotel. Their buffet is very famous in this area. As long as you agree to take her there for dinner, the girls who live nearby don't mind spending the night with you. Such a good place. You ate there for 2 days, and you didn't even call me. I thought we were good friends. Ron finally thought of what he felt was wrong. Max is different from all the girls he has met before. She is the girl who would exclaim at the shoe grill in Caroline's house, not to mention the Marriott Hotel buffet, which has always been synonymous with luxury in her mind. But even if he knew, he couldn't take Max with him. On the first day, Ron was taken to the Hollywood celebration party by Megan. Megan herself is a big jealous person and has always regarded herself as Ron's girlfriend. God knows what the woman will do when she sees Max. Ron looked at the angry Max, and suddenly an idea came to him. He directly helped Subeo ride on the bear horse's back and held out his hand to Max from a high position. My beautiful lady, may I have the honor of inviting you to breakfast as an apology? Although the hotel breakfast is not as rich as the buffet in the evening, the bacon and ham should be good, and I just happen to have 2 breakfast rolls. Ron's room is a double room, so it is not surprising that there are 2 breakfast rolls. Based on Ron's experience yesterday, the ham used for breakfast is Iberian ham, which is still worth tasting. It won't take too long, right? I have to go to work later. Max's expression was a little relaxed, mainly because Ron riding bareback was so handsome. Riding bareback is not something that everyone can do. It must be a senior cowboy with rich experience. In American culture, this is also a very manly behavior. Ron took advantage of her unpreparedness and pulled Max's hand and pulled her onto the horse while she was exclaiming. Because there is no saddle, it will be very bumpy, but it's only a short distance, is it okay? Of course Max was confident. Well, let's get on. Ron tapped the horse's belly lightly, and the clever horse immediately carried them to gallop on the street and back to the hotel entrance. Then, in front of the doorman's stunned eyes, Ron jumped off the horse like an ancient general and carried Max down. Next, it seemed so natural to have breakfast and go back to the room to comfort Max. If Max didn't have the job of a nanny to do, the 2 of them could have stayed in the hotel for another day. But there was no way. Even with Ron's powerful words, he couldn't make Max give up the job, and that didn't seem so good now, so he could only let her go back. When Ron was about to take a nap, Howard called him again. Ron, we are in trouble. What trouble? Ron sat up from the bed. Didn't you say that you could finish this little toy in 1 night? It's all Rajesh's fault. Howard immediately put the blame on the Indian. I overestimated his programming skills. Rajesh, this idiot, can't even handle the simplest flight control technology. Howard didn't finish his words, and Rajesh's fierce protest came from the phone. The flight control program of the drone? Ron didn't quite understand it, but he knew that it was definitely not an easy task to achieve stable flight by controlling the rotation speed of the 4 propellers and move freely forward, backward, left, right, up and down. And Rajesh was just an astrophysicist, so it was not his fault. Wait, I'll be there soon. Ron had no choice but to change his clothes, check out, and drive to Caltech. Half an hour later, in Howard's lab at Caltech, Ron saw the semi-finished product lying on the lab table. Semi-finished product was just Howard's term. In Ron's opinion, it was basically no different from the drones he had seen in his previous life. Ron covered his head, which had just caused him a headache from the quarrel, and asked, "Okay, who of you can tell me what's going on now?" Rajesh poked Howard secretly. Howard had to speak up to introduce Ron. "As you can see, I have completed all the mechanical design work, and even installed sensors and other things. It can be said that it is now a mature work, so, why can't it fly now? We need a program, a flight control program to control its flight, do you understand?" "It's like," Ron interrupted Howard's explanation, "at least I am a Harvard graduate, although I majored in humanities, but I still understand, so can I understand that it can fly now with just a full program?" The 2 scientists nodded in unison. "Do you think Sheldon is good enough to make this program?" Ron asked tentatively. He knew that with Caltech's level, there must be a lot of people who can complete this work, but he just didn't want a stranger to participate in his plan. However, the result was disappointment. The 2 thought about it and shook their heads. Chapter 77, Peggy appears. The 2 shook their heads again like rattles. Sheldon's math and physics levels are unmatched in the entire Caltech, but when it comes to programming, he is not as good as me. "I can steal his World of Warcraft account in a minute," Howard said. After Howard's reminder, Ron also remembered that Sheldon's World of Warcraft account was stolen once, and it was Howard who identified the location of the hacker through hacking. However, when they went to the door, the 4 weak chickens were robbed in front of the hacker. In the end, it was Penny who stepped in and got the place back. Thinking of this, Ron felt even more headache. Howard was the character with the most miscellaneous skills in the 4-person group. Logically, his programming level should also be the highest in the 4-person group. Who else can he find for something he can't handle? You can't really find an outsider, right? Just as he was worried, Ron suddenly felt a shock in his waist. It was a text message. "I feel like you seem to have ignored my strength." Sender, Peggy. How did she know? Ron was shocked. He immediately picked up his phone and planned to reply her, but when he was halfway through writing, a new message came. "Are you curious about how I know? If you are curious, nod your head." "What the hell? How do you know if I didn't nod my head?" Ron looked around the room. There was no 4th person in the room except himself, Howard and Rajesh. How could she see my movements? Wait. Ron suddenly stood up and waved to the camera in the corner. The movable camera immediately responded by tapping up and down, as if nodding. Rajesh screamed in horror. "Ron, are we being targeted by someone? Is it an agent from another country? You must protect us." "No," Ron smiled. He knew that everything was caused by Peggy. She was still as bad-humored as ever. "It's not an agent, it's an angel who saw a predicament and came to help." Ron's phone vibrated again. "I agree with you. I am your angel." Ron was even more surprised. If Peggy hacked into the school's surveillance system and saw him, he would not be surprised. But the surveillance camera was silent. How could she hear it? It couldn't be lip reading, right? Was I talking to the camera just now? Ron began to recall, and the 2 scientists over there started to use paper and pen to try to interact with the camera as if they had found a new toy. But Peggy didn't bother to pay attention to them. Instead, she sent Ron another text message like a witch with the ability to read minds. "I guess you must think I was lip reading, but I'm sorry, it's not. I'll give you 3 minutes to guess. If you guess right, I don't mind giving you my first time as a prize." Ron looked at the text message on his phone with a frown on his face. "Look at what you said, as if you won't give it to me if I guess wrong. God knows how much effort I put in to avoid losing my virginity to you." But Ron was really sensitive to the answer to this question. As an agent, even if he was not specialized in intelligence, he was extremely sensitive to being monitored. If Peggy could do it, who else could do it? Will his future actions be exposed directly as long as he uses the phone? This is what he cares about most. "I say, do you have any equipment here that can be hacked and then monitored?" Ron raised the text message on his phone to Howard, who was horrified. What? Our conversation was monitored. But even though Ron and the two scientists searched the laboratory together, they did not find any suspicious items. 3 minutes passed quickly and Ron's phone vibrated again. Ha, you are still as stupid as before, Ron. Sorry, it seems that I have won again this time. How should I reward myself? Ron seemed to see Peggy's smug and cute smile through the text on the phone. Why not give me the Ron reward tonight? Smiley face. Ron laughed out loud and dialed Peggy's number directly. Hey, Peggy, what are you doing? Ha. A silver bell-like laugh came from the receiver. Don't you like me to help you? Well, of course I like it, but I don't like the feeling of being monitored. You know, people need some privacy, Ron said awkwardly. Are you talking about the private things you did with a busted waitress in the hotel this morning? Penny asked jokingly. I have a recording of the whole process. Do you want me to play it for you? Please don't. Ron immediately lost and quickly changed the subject. I guess you already have a solution to the problem I'm facing now, right? How else can he answer? If he doesn't serve this lady well, it will be really troublesome if she doesn't help. At least, Peggy is not an outsider. Of course, it's just a flight control program. It's very simple. I've sent the program to the Jewish email address. You can just ask him to install it. Oh. God. Ron, guess what I found? Howard's surprised voice came from the room. An impeccable flight control program. Even as calm as Ron, he had to admire Peggy's speed, but he knew that there is no free lunch in the world. Okay, what do you want to pay this time? You want me to go on a date with you again, counting the one you promised me last time in Miami. You already owe me 3 dates, so I'll give you a higher price. How about you accompany me for the whole day today? Of course, no problem. I mean a whole day, including the night. When she said the last part, Peggy's voice even showed a rare shyness. This Ron didn't know how to answer for a while. Peggy has always been targeting him, and Ron certainly knows it, but he has never been able to be with her. If you have to ask why, Ron's reason is ridiculous. It's for world peace. Peggy is different from other women. Perhaps because her parents' divorce left her with too much psychological trauma, Peggy is a person who pursues a sense of security. As for Ron, he has so many women, including Max, Caroline, Megan, and Collins, that he can't even count them. Just look at Ron's genius brother Sheldon. When he was 9 years old, he could build a nuclear reactor at home. Although he was interrupted by the FBI in the end, he really has the knowledge and ability. God knows how much trouble this girl would make if he really married Peggy and was caught cheating again. That's a super genius with an IQ at least twice that of Sheldon. If he turns evil, the consequences will be disastrous. Chapter 78, Peggy's Past. Peggy has always been lonely. In this world full of fools, she often feels out of tune with the fools around her because of her excessive wit, including her parents. But this does not prevent her from loving them, because love has no direct relationship with IQ. This situation did not change until someone appeared next to her. Do you think I'm talking about Ron? No, I'm talking about Sheldon. For the first time, Peggy discovered that among a large group of fools, there is a person whose intelligence can barely keep up with her. Although this person may have a physical defect and his emotional intelligence is basically zero, but at least he is fun? To be honest, for Peggy, nothing is more enjoyable than rubbing a fool, another kind of fool, with a similar IQ to hers on the ground. It may sound a little perverted, but once you try it, you will know. It is really interesting. Peggy thought that she would probably be happy like this forever, with a harmonious family, obedient friends, because she is too smart. Her friends are used to her being the leader, and interesting toys, Sheldon. Until one day, she found out that her parents were fighting over her education and even divorced. On that day, she felt like the sky was falling. So she began to fall, changing from a cute girl next door to a rock girl's outfit, getting in touch with shabby gangsters, stealing things together, and she even wanted to try the taste of drugs. Getting this kind of thing may be a little difficult for others, but for the genius girl Peggy, it is not a piece of cake. She can even extract it from the cold medicine in the pharmacy, which is guaranteed to be purer than the small pinch of washing powder she bought and put on the tin foil. Peggy's white and tender little hand trembled as she lit the lighter. The flickering flame gradually approached the bottom of the tin foil, but at this moment, her hand was held by a strong big hand. I advise you not to touch that thing. Although it is called medicine in newspapers and the media, you may not know that it is called drugs in that big eastern country, which means poisonous medicine, When talking about the word drugs, Ron specifically used Chinese. Everyone knew that he liked Eastern culture very much, so it was not surprising that he could speak Chinese. Peggy looked up and recognized that this nosy guy was her favorite toy family member, Sheldon's brother, another idiot who was a little smarter than little George. Although he had a pair of eyes that seemed to be very vicissitudes of life and often thought about problems in an adult way, it still could not cover up the fact that he was an idiot. Of course, this was relative to her and Sheldon. In the eyes of ordinary people, they might be called geniuses in parallel. Genius? What a joke. A 17-year-old high school student who can't even solve a nonlinear partial differential equation. What kind of genius is he? Peggy was unmoved, and irritably shook off Ron's hand and got angry again, but it says painkillers on the bottle. I'm in pain and feel very uncomfortable now. Can't I take some? Believe me, if you take it, there will be more pain in your life. When that day comes, you will definitely regret this decision today. I believe that your little head, which is as smart as my brother, will understand this. Ron unceremoniously knocked off the powder on Peggy's paper, and stepped on it to prevent Peggy from having similar ideas again. Let me make this clear. I accidentally stepped on dog shit when I went out today. If you insist on trying it after I leave, and you find something special, please don't blame me. Peggy was very upset. Do I look like someone who would pick up things from the ground and eat them? I'm not that idiot like Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is not an idiot, Ron defended his follower. He just doesn't look very smart. Isn't that what you mean? Peggy rolled her eyes in anger. Of course not. The idiot you mentioned, in my opinion, is the kind of person who gives up on himself because he can't get what he wants or feels that the things he has always liked are gone. Forrest Gump is never like that. If Forrest Gump decides to do something, he will definitely stick to it and do it better than anyone else in the end, of course, except for things like mathematics and science. Ron, who had many years of experience in defending against arguments in his previous life, did not forget to add a sentence at the end. Persist? Haha. Peggy's face showed a smile that was not in line with her age, as if she saw through everything. If even my family is gone, who can I insist on? Forget it. A fool like you will never understand that if a person is too smart, it will also be a sin, and even led to the destruction of an originally warm family. This time it was Ron's turn to be upset. This line, this image, is Peggy the founder of the second-year girl? However, it is too early to say the founder at this age, right? But at the same age as Missy, even Missy liked a little boy, but just wanted to hold hands with him. Okay, do you really think your parents quarreled because you are too smart? Ron said sarcastically. What kind of reason is this? If it weren't for the incompatibility of their personalities, how could they quarrel? Maybe it was because of your birth that their originally precarious marriage survived for a few more years. Is that really the case? Peggy raised her head suddenly and glared at Ron fiercely. Her empty eyes gradually became shiny. It was the first time she heard someone analyze the issue of parents' divorce from this perspective. She never thought that things could be like this. This certainly doesn't mean that she is not smart enough. How could a genius girl who can crush Sheldon in all aspects not be smart? It's just that some things can't be figured out by being smart, but also require corresponding experience, and in this regard, Ron happens to be very sufficient. What else? Ron put his hand on Peggy's blonde hair and rubbed it. He didn't forget to put a lollipop into Peggy's mouth before. Every time Missy was angry, he would coax her like this. And it works every time. Don't always think that everything is your problem in the future. Of course, I know you are so young and you still don't understand many things, but you can talk to your friends, or play together, or just come with us. I don't mind taking you a little one. I know Missy likes you very much. Ron, who was the only child in his previous life and lived again, naturally became a sister-loving demon. Although there are reasons for favoring girls over boys, the more important reason is, Sheldon is really not cute. Then can you walk with me now? There was a pleading look in Peggy's eyes. Ron hesitated for a moment, but nodded and agreed. Of course, but you have to wait a moment. Now is the father-son fitness time for me and old George. I'll come back to find you right away, okay? In the distance, old George's angry roar came. Ron. You little bastard, you dare to smash all my beer, stop right there and don't run. Is this the father-son fitness time you mentioned? Peggy looked over Ron's shoulder and saw old George's panting figure slowly running towards her. She cast a questioning look at Ron again. You look like you're going to be beaten today. That's right, old George is too fat. If I don't find a way to get him to exercise more, he will definitely die of a heart attack before he is 40 years old, Ron said confidently. Don't worry, he won't beat me. Ron squinted his eyes proudly. Actually, I broke the empty bottles filled with water. I had hidden the real beer at my grandma's house a long time ago. Peggy felt that this man's IQ was hopeless. So, are you sure your grandma won't drink them all? Ron's face changed immediately. Damn. I missed it. I said that when I was hiding beer with my grandma just now, she was always smiling and gave me 5 cents of pocket money. It turns out she was waiting for me here. Chapter 79 Peggy's Methods. Ron's thin body was gradually covered by a huge black shadow like a hill. He looked up and saw the angry face of George. Kid, where's my beer? The final result was obvious. Ron was severely beaten by George. Although the U.S. law does not allow beating children, it does not say that they cannot be grounded. This has almost no effect on Ron. Don't forget, he is still the quarterback of the high school football team. Anyone who knows about football knows that the quarterback is the soul of a team and the initiator of the game's offense. Ron's passing is like a precision-guided missile, and his flexible footwork and speed are no less than those of a running back. They often become the magic weapon for this team to win. So even though he was grounded, Ron could still go out and play during the game and training time, and even had time to comfort Peggy. And Peggy also began to like the sport of football from this time on. Or rather, she didn't like football, but the people who played football. If I had to say the reason, it was probably the hand that held her wrist at the darkest moment of her life. The warmth he brought pulled her back to the world full of warmth. At the Howard Laboratory of California Institute of Technology, when Howard and Rajesh were hugging each other and jumping around passionately, Ron's eyes finally caught a glimpse of a skirt at the door. If he guessed correctly, it should be Peggy. It's good that the flight control program can be used. The rest is up to you. Guys, I'm going to go out for a while. Ron just turned around and turned back. If you go to register a patent, remember to divide the patent ownership into 5 parts, 1 for each of you, and 3 for me. Is that okay? Of course, my dear boss. Howard and Rajesh took off their hats together to salute Ron. When Ron went out, Peggy had already left the door, but how could a girl who stayed at home all day run faster than a professional agent? After going around a corner, Ron finally pressed Peggy against the wall in a wall-dong posture. You're already here, but you just won't say hello. Peggy looked up, staring at him with big eyes as charming as gemstones. If what you mean by saying hello is a sexual harassment gesture, then don't do it. Believe it or not, if I call the police now, I can throw you into jail immediately. What a joke. Who would do that to a girl with a child's body? Ron was halfway through his words when he finally noticed that it was probably too long since they had met, and all their contacts were made over the phone and the internet. Peggy was completely different from what he had imagined. When Ron laughed at her body, she even deliberately pushed her proud breasts forward provocatively. Ron was immediately shocked. The last time he saw Peggy, this place was still an airport that could take off and land large passenger planes. Even though Peggy was very smart, she couldn't help but feel proud of Ron's shocked expression. It seems that some people have to apologize for their comments on children's bodies just now. How did you do that? Ron stuttered. This is too fantastic. You didn't do fillers. As he said that, Ron made a balloon blowing motion. Peggy punched Ron in shame and anger. I won't do those messy operations on myself. Then how did you do it? Ron scratched his head awkwardly. I remember that your mother didn't seem to follow the genetic point of view, and you wouldn't do that, right? Ron said while choosing his words carefully, so as not to irritate the seemingly harmless girl in front of him. Others don't know, but he knows very well that those scums who roamed around Texas and liked to kill people with things like electric saws disappeared without a trace after being arrogant for a while. The time and place of their disappearance just happened to coincide with Peggy's school spring outing. Ron didn't believe that their disappearance had nothing to do with Peggy. Although there was no evidence, Ron just believed that the disappearance of those scumbags was definitely deeply related to Peggy. This is a drug that has not been made public yet, Peggy said with great pride. Don't worry, there are no toxic side effects. I have experimented with it. It is a good thing I found in the internal drug testing data at the pharmaceutical company. It made its last drug tester Max go from an A cup to an E cup. Now he's working in a small restaurant. Max? Ron chewed on the name. He always felt that Peggy's words had a hidden meaning, and he just happened to know a Max. It couldn't be such a coincidence, right? Yes, it's such a coincidence. Don't you like big ones? Are you satisfied now? Peggy boldly kissed Ron on the lips and said with courage. Peggy, you really don't have to be like this. Ron really didn't know what to say. The current Peggy was completely different from the Peggy he knew when he was watching the drama. But except Sheldon, who wouldn't change when they grow up? No, I don't have any family now, so I have to hold on to you tightly, even if I have to do everything, Ron, Peggy bit her lip and said stubbornly. You don't want to drug me and lock me up in a small dark room, do you? Ron tried to use a joke to ease the atmosphere, but Peggy's eyes became more serious. It depends on whether you cooperate or not. Of course, I admit that this will be my last resort. You don't really think I can't deal with a fool who only has physical strength, right? Or do you want to guess what's in my lipstick? Peggy smiled mischievously, and Ron immediately felt his scalp tingling. He remembered that Peggy was not only an excellent hacker, but also an excellent chemist. She often mixed some messy things by herself, some of which even helped him a lot in his previous case handling. I told you that I don't like to play with people like you who have too high IQ and have certain hands-on skills. Ron wanted to open his mouth to say something, but he found himself frozen. Even if he tried his best, he could only open his mouth a small hole and mutter some meaningless sounds. Damn it. I've been tricked. Peggy took the initiative and helped Ron, who had lost his strength, to lean against the wall. She pushed a small cart from the side. Ron then noticed that there was a simple cart next to him, ready to be used at any time as if it had been prepared in advance. In other words, this was all arranged by Peggy from the beginning. Ron, you are mine tonight, Peggy whispered in his ear as she helped Ron onto the cart, but Ron's consciousness was slowly blurring. In the end, there was only one thought left, is this a mystery? I've been wise all my life. Chapter 80 Board Ron. Los Angeles, IRS. Ron's Special Operations Team headquarters. Ron sat in his office chair in a daze. 3 days had passed since Peggy arrived. He woke up the next morning in a strange hotel room. All his memories after he fainted were gone, and he only vaguely remembered that he had a dream. In the dream, there were Princess Elsa from Frozen, Princess Jasmine from Aladdin, and Jasmine from Beauty and the Beast, etc. Without exception, they all had Peggy's face, as if Peggy was doing cosplay. When he woke up, Peggy had disappeared, leaving only an ugly-looking mobile phone without a brand on the table, which was left by Peggy. There was only one message on it to confirm the fact that Peggy had been there. If you miss me in the future, use this phone to contact me. Kissing expression. In addition, even if Ron used his authority to roughly check all the surveillance cameras from Peggy's home to the Caltech laboratory and then to the hotel, he did not find Peggy's existence. She was like a ghost. Apart from the new phone in Ron's hand and his vague memory, there was nothing to prove that she had been here. Even when Ron was unconscious, the supermarket in front of Peggy's house had captured her buying things. But as a U-Touch agent, Ron still found a flaw in the surveillance footage. This video was clearly recorded and was playing in a loop. This girl, isn't she too careful? However, thinking about the Prison Gate incident in the United States, it seemed that it was only a few years ago. Ron felt that Peggy's cautious methods were justified. Hackers of her level would definitely encounter all kinds of troubles once exposed. It's better to be an ordinary person like now. Unconsciously, the sunlight was a little dazzling. Ron finally lazily moved his chair slightly to the side to avoid being exposed to the sun, but even if he turned over, he still couldn't sleep. Well, it seems that I am really bored. Andy, is there any interesting work recently that can make me happy? Ron sat up helplessly. In the huge office, he was in a daze. Andy used the funds to buy a whole set of the most expensive coffee machine and read the newspaper while making coffee. If Hank was not still maintaining the gun, Ron's special operations team would look no different from a nursing home. Andy put down the newspaper and pushed his glasses. Boss, we collected a total of $21.1 million in taxes from the code-named fried chicken operation this month. After deducting the part that was handed in and daily expenses such as annual wages and bonuses, there are still more than $5 million left. The KPI for the entire year has been completed. Shouldn't we enjoy some leisure time now? I remember you promised before that if we can catch this big drug lord, all members can enjoy a half-year vacation. Ron was speechless. This was what he said before during the mobilization. Now not only did he receive taxes from Uncle Fried Chicken, but he also far exceeded the target of collecting $10 million in taxes in the first year set by Francis. But even if we have completed the annual mission goals, we can't relax. Look at what you are like now. I don't remember when my special operations team was changed to nursing home. This is not my special operations team. Well, if you really want to find something, There might be something interesting in that pile of intelligence. Andy picked up a pile of papers that was used to support the coffee machine and handed it to Ron, saying in a coaxing tone, "These are the shared intelligence sent from the FBI recently. They are basically some recent case files. I read them as crime novels when I'm bored." Ron couldn't help but feel angry, but he followed the traditional virtues of the Chinese nation of respecting the elderly and loving the young, so he couldn't get angry at this old man. Andy was even a few years older than his father, George. What's more, after Andy, who was proficient in financial knowledge, came, he took over a lot of financial work that required calculations from Ron, which made his work much easier, so he had time to be bored. Let me see if there are any interesting things recently. There was no way. Ron could only greet Hank and pass the time with the intelligence shared by the FBI, and while looking at it, he didn't forget to complain. The gunfight at Vespucci Beach? Needless to say, it must be that group of car thieves and hooligans fighting over the spoils. Let's just kill those hooligans. Anyway, we can buy all the money with drugs and we won't get any tax. A well-known gangster choked to death in his own swimming pool? Get rid of it. Is the FBI so idle that it even cares about such trivial matters? It's not strange that some people can't swim these days. As Ron spoke, he turned the intelligence he had read but didn't use into waste paper and threw it into a trash can in the distance, just like playing basketball shooting. But suddenly, Hank seemed to be crazy and picked up the waste paper that Ron had just thrown away. Hank looked at the photo in the intelligence and murmured, "This is Harry. I know this guy." "What? What's wrong with this?" Ron leaned over. It was an ordinary robbery and death case. The deceased was a patron of a private security company, an old man and a cripple. The cause of death was a gunshot by a car robber, and Ron didn't notice anything unusual. Hank nodded heavily. "This old guy was my father's comrade in arms. They served together in Vietnam. He was an old bastard, but even though his legs were paralyzed, believe me, he couldn't be easily shot by a drug addict. Maybe he's old and blurry." Ron shrugged indifferently, still not taking it seriously. "This kind of case is too common in Los Angeles, and there are several every day." "No. My father went to the shooting range with this old guy just last week. At a distance of 20 meters, this old guy used a pistol and every shot hit the 10 rings. Do you think those street thugs can deal with such a ruthless guy?" Hank shouted loudly, holding the crumpled intelligence. Ron immediately realized that there must be a big problem with this case. "Andy, contact the FBI immediately and ask them to send me a copy of the relevant information of this case." "No problem, boss." Ron turned to Hank with sharp eyes. The capable IRS agent finally came back online. "Do you think this is a premeditated murder?" "Obviously." Hank pointed to the bullet holes in the photos of the scene and said, "Look, the ballistic analysis said that the bullet holes on the car door were caused by a .45 caliber pistol bullet. Harry happened to have a collector's edition M1911 that he carries with him at all times, but there was no trace of this gun at the scene. Maybe the gangsters took his gun and killed him." Andy interrupted and shared the discussion. "Impossible," Hank retorted. "Harry is an expert with a gun. Do you think you have a chance to grab Ron's gun and kill him?" Andy rolled his eyes and stopped talking. "Grab Ron's gun and kill him? I think you think I'm not dying fast enough." Chapter 81 Guoda, is that you? The information was quickly sent back from the FBI. Ron listened to the two people's quarrel while casually flipping through the relevant information. Suddenly, Ron picked up one of the photos and stared at it for a long time. His dormant memory finally woke up, and he even felt a little nostalgic. "Guoda. Is that you?" "Boss, what's wrong with this photo?" Hank asked curiously. "This is a photo of the deceased Harry's relationship investigation before his death. In the photo, he is sitting with a bald young man. Of course, young is relative to the old Harry." Ron rubbed his brows gently and calmed himself down. "Of course there's a problem. Look at this man. I suspect this man is the real murderer who killed Harry, and then disguised the scene as a robbery." Hank was a little surprised and checked the information carefully, but still did not find any useful evidence. But the information shows that they are just ordinary friends. Even among the suspects, he is not even in the top 10. These people are much more suspicious than him. "Why do you suspect it is him, sir?" As he said, Hank picked out a few photos and placed them in front of Ron, but Ron still stubbornly pointed at the bald man sitting opposite Harry. "There is no reason, but I just doubt it." Ron looked at Hank with a serious face. "Remember, no matter where you see someone with this face, you must be careful. Except for the talk show actor and mysterious China, All people who look like this are tough guys you can't afford to offend. Believe me, you can't deal with it alone, so run as far as you can." Hank was confused by the sudden seriousness of the usually nonsensical Ron, but in line with the principle of listening to the superiors, he nodded blankly. No wonder Ron is so careful. After all, this is a world mixed with American dramas and movies. Guo-da has played too many action movies, and they are all tough characters. In addition to Deckard Shaw, who has been confirmed to be from the Fast and Furious series, Jonas Taylor, who Ron met when he was on a mission in Southeast Asia, and Arthur from the mechanic in front of him, who knows how many Guo-das are not online. Whenever Ron thinks of this, he has a headache. What's going on? Collecting 7 Guo-das can also summon a dragon, and then wish for a bottle of special effect hair growth water? So what should we do now? Are you going to take over this case? Sir, does that count as working for the FBI for nothing? It has to be said that since Hank received his first bonus from the IRS, he no longer has any attachment to the DIA and the FBI. God is my witness, the bonuses he earned in the DIA for almost 10 years combined are not that much. Especially with the bonuses, and his wife's tricks, Hank's steps at work have been a little shaky for several days. Ron shook his head, with a faint smile on his lips. Of course it's not working for nothing, our remuneration will be paid by other companies. You don't really think this tough guy named Arthur is a lone wolf? You mean he is from which assassin company? Hank was reminded by Ron, and finally his thoughts returned to the right track, but he still had the same old thinking. But even so, aren't we working against them? How can they pay us? We are not their employees. Why should they pay us? Ron asked curiously. It's all in vain, isn't it? Hank murmured after tasting the sweetness. At this time, even Andy couldn't bear it anymore. Hank, don't forget what we do. Don't assassin companies have to pay taxes? Hank patted his big head, which was not much bigger than Guo-dameo's. Yes. Boss, when are we leaving? If we get another bonus this time, we can just buy a new car. Mary has been talking about it for a long time at home. Leave? Leave for what? Ron rolled his eyes in annoyance and looked at his 2 money-hungry subordinates. Do you know where their company is? Just leave? Come on, my dear Hank, if you can find a location of their company now, I will take you to collect taxes immediately. How about it? Although Hank was much older than Ron, he was still scolded by Ron like a child who had done something wrong. He pursed his lips, but still asked stubbornly, then what can we do with them? Ron had no better way. Generally, assassin companies like this would obtain a base in the city in the name of a private security company, and then provide assassination services to people in need in the name of security business. All the money is collected through the security business. From the account, you can hardly see any difference between it and a normal security company. Even if you buy normal security services from them, you will get a good experience. It's just that when you know that the bodyguards around you are professional killers, how you feel is not something they consider. But the good news is that as Ron's deeper memories are awakened, Ron came up with a brilliant idea. Don't worry, Hank, I need you to monitor this person, of course, just through the monitoring equipment in the public area. This person should be the top player of this killer company. I guess his anti-tracking technology must be very strong. You are likely to lose him. If you arouse his vigilance, it will be bad. God knows how much trouble we will have to find this person again. Hank nodded in agreement. If Ron remembered correctly, according to the timeline, he would definitely act again immediately, kill another old glass killer with Harry's son, and then be abandoned by the original company when he handed in the task. That would be his chance. You know, being a killer is a highly profitable business. If you do it well, the income will not be much worse than drug trafficking. Ron can foresee that another big bonus is waving to him. The only thing we need to consider is whether we will be attacked by armed resistance after we find that they are rooting around. This is a problem. Then do we need to notify the FBI? That's a whole company, and they are all professional killers. I think we need support, Hank suggested. FBI? No. Ron thought about it and rejected Hank's proposal. Although the two sides are now in the honeymoon period of cooperation, facing such a big piece of fat, the FBI will definitely want to get a share of it. Unfortunately, Ron's habit is to eat alone. Moreover, he is not optimistic about the combat effectiveness of the FBI. Even a guy like O'Connor can be regarded as the top card by Jack of the FBI. It is conceivable how weak the strength of the Los Angeles branch is. I think we need some more powerful equipment. Ron thought about it and gave an answer. More powerful equipment? Hank looked at the half-wiped LG-5 sniper grenade launcher on his desk, his head full of question marks. Boss, wake up, we already have sniper howitzers. With their current firepower, even if there are only 2 of us, it is enough to suppress a platoon of the army. More powerful? You can't get a tank, right? Ron touched his smooth chin, his eyes lit up. Tank? That seems to be a good idea. P.S. There were some things at home, and I have already dealt with them. Because of the one update, I have collected a lot recently, and there is no recommendation position. Without saying anything else, please help me. How many lines do you read for me? The recent assessment standard seems to be follow-up reading. In return, and as compensation for the past few days, I will update 3 times first. Thank you everyone. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82 Tracking Target. At night, Los Angeles has become the world of hippies and speedsters. Ron walks among young people with dreadlocks and wearing all kinds of big t-shirts. His expensive handmade suit seems out of place with the style here, attracting strange looks from people around him. Hey, kid, hand over all the valuables on you, and I can. Turning the corner, a cold object hit Ron's head. Ron was not surprised at all. This was the 3rd wave of robbers he encountered tonight. Kid, has anyone ever taught you who you can't mess with on the street? Before the black boy with dreadlocks could finish his words, Ron suddenly turned around and interrupted him. He knocked the black man's pistol away with one elbow and hit the black man's face with the other elbow. The black man screamed and squatted down with his face covered. Ron's right foot, which had been ready for a long time, kicked the black man's lower body with a powerful shooting posture. Crack! Ron seemed to hear the sound of eggs breaking. And I'm the kind of person you can't afford to mess with. Ron picked up the black guy's pistol. It happened to be an M1911, but it was the most common model on the market. It was incomparable to the high-end stuff with the Rock Island logo that killed Harry, although there was no difference in performance. Ron pointed the gun at the gangster who was about to rob him. I'm counting to 3 now. If you don't get out of here, I'll blow your head off. 1, bang. Just as Ron counted the first number, a bullet hit the ground in front of the gangster's crotch. The black guy screamed in fear, and before Ron could count the second number, he rolled and crawled away, turning the corner and disappeared. What the hell, I just wanted to take a small road, where did all these monsters come from? Ron muttered softly, but immediately, the hidden headphones he was wearing received a response. Who told you to hurry? It was Peggy. Okay, now tell me, where's that damn glass now? Just as I predicted, he's still in the little bar where he's been appearing all this time, just opposite the restaurant where your 2 old lovers are. How about it? Do you want to go say hello? For example, ask them if they were willing to have a threesome with you. Peggy's tone was full of sarcasm, but her fleshy face was full of temptation for a young man like Ron, who was full of vigor and vitality. Ahem. Ron quickly coughed to cover up his embarrassment. You think too much? I'm working now, Peggy. You know, you're my dearest. I swear. Seeing that Peggy didn't believe him, Ron quickly raised his palm to the camera on the corner of the street and swore. It's not that he was afraid of what Peggy would do to him. To be honest, if the last thing happened a few more times, it would be pretty cool to think about it. If it could be done while sober, it would be even better. Ron was mainly afraid that Peggy would kill the poor 2 sisters in the Williamsburg restaurant. God bless you, even if all of Ron's other women were tied together, it would not be enough for Peggy to deal with it alone. It's okay, whatever you want, I don't care, you men are all the same, I'll just treat them as your inflatable toys, Peggy said. However, I still suggest you go and say hello, because the window seat in that restaurant is the best place to observe the gay couple, then I'll listen to you. Ron casually put the gun in his body, hid it into his clothes, and walked into the restaurant. The first thing that caught his eye was the black cashier wearing exaggeratedly large headphones. Hey, men, you're dressed in the wrong place. You should go to the Avenue of Stars and walk the red carpet with those superstars. If I didn't have a brother who happened to be infected with AIDS because of homosexuality, I would rather please you with my anus and wave the $500 tip after you recognize me. Haha, brother, don't bully me for not knowing the business. The current market is not that expensive, Ron smiled and bumped fists with Earl. Maybe you can recommend me a more upscale place. I'm Ron, Earl, a non-famous saxophonist who has released jazz records. Earl has a pair of sharp black brother eyes and is very accurate in judging people. I guess you must be here for the girls here, right? Oleg, who just finished using the toilet, walked past Ron and swaggered back to the kitchen. The strong smell of deodorant sprayed to cover up body odor made Ron almost fall. If the food here doesn't pass through the hands of the chef just now, I would like to eat here. To be honest, I even doubt whether he washed his hands just now. Ron spread his hands helplessly. Dad, Earl has to warn you if you play with a girl's feelings. Ron, Max's surprised voice came from behind. Why are you here? I just happened to follow you and came to see you and eat something. Ron greeted Max naturally, and did not forget to turn around and say to Earl, look, we are friends. Ron was led by Max to sit in an empty booth, which happened to be next to the window. From this angle, the small bar opposite, which was all made of glass windows, was in full view. No, actually, I know a great female writer, and I am very impressed by her writing skills. I am ready to communicate again at any time, but I don't know when the superb female writer will be free again. Caroline was not in the store, and Ron didn't mind being more arrogant, and he took the opportunity to pinch Max's hand gently while taking the menu. A heavy snort came from the headset, and Ron couldn't help but smile. It turns out that you are still jealous maybe after getting off work at 2 in the morning. You made me fuck now, Max whispered, her face a little hot. Even if she was bold in her words, she would occasionally be timid when she met someone she liked. Afraid of being noticed by other customers, Max immediately pretended to be indifferent. Will you order now, customer? Ron chuckled and did not continue to tease, but raised the menu to cover his face, and both eyes were fixed on the figures of two men, one strong and one thin, in the bar opposite. Yes, he had found the target of tonight. Can I know if there is any food that has not been handled by the chef just now? I don't mean anything else, I just have a certain prejudice against the behavior of not washing hands when going to the toilet. P.S. There will be another chapter later, but it may be very late, so it is recommended to read it tomorrow. In addition, please follow the update well. Your follow-up is the greatest support for me now. Chapter 83 Movie King. Then there are only fries, or I can make you a beef burger. Okay, that's it. Ron handed the menu back to Max, and quietly played with his phone while waiting for the food to be served. Although Apple's first smartphone had just been launched, Ron did not buy one, but that did not mean that other phones did not have a good game to kill time. For example, there was a game called Urban Skyscraper on Nokia phones. As long as you use a crane to lower the floors one by one and align them without falling, you can build up infinitely. When Ron first found this game, he instantly felt like a throwback. However, Ron's energy was not entirely on his phone at this time. He was playing the game carelessly, and from time to time he glanced at the bar opposite with the corner of his eye. At this time, Harry's son, the Thin Killer, had already put his head on the big man's shoulder, which made Ron's scalp numb. These killers really have no bottom line. In order to complete the mission, they can even change their orientation. It's simply a two-way hand plug, Peggy complained in the headset, and Ron nodded in agreement. Caroline finally arrived late, her high heels clicking and clacking. Due to the angle, she didn't see Ron, but walked straight to Max and held out her hand. Are you happy now? I look like a Cambodian stripper. Caroline's nails were all painted a gaudy red, and the prostheses extended a long way out, making them look extremely cheap. They are more often called ping-pong shooters. It cost me $70.43. She forced me to get fake nails and then pay her the tip for the fake nails. Caroline was about to go crazy, and because you didn't come, I didn't get the buy one get one free discount. Max had a half smile on his face. See, it's different when your little lover is here, and you feel more confident. What? Caroline followed Max's gaze and finally saw Ron. Then, like a frightened rabbit, she quickly squatted behind the counter, sticking her butt out and peeking at Ron secretly. Max opened his mouth in surprise at Caroline's exaggerated performance. Hey, what's wrong with you? You obviously slept together, but you're afraid to meet each other. I don't want him to see me wearing this stupid and ugly uniform. I would rather appear in front of him naked. For me, this is a super disaster like my father's arrest. Are you sure you want to do this in front of Oleg? Max grinned. Remind me, he is now looking at the scenery under your skirt and satisfying himself. I guess he is imagining the story you just told. Caroline turned her head and saw Oleg lying at the food delivery port, staring at her buttocks with lustful eyes. One hand was fiddling with something under the table, but his body was swaying back and forth rhythmically. Caroline screamed and stood up suddenly, covering her skirt with both hands and glaring at Oleg. That Ron had walked to the front of the stage without knowing when. Let me interrupt. Although this uniform is ugly and stupid, it looks stunning on you too. Thank you. Caroline turned around, but her hands were still behind her back to cover her skirt. If it was only Ron, she would rather lift it up to show him, but forget about Oleg. Max, I have left the meal money and tips on the table. Sorry, I suddenly have something urgent that needs me to go. See you next time. Goodbye Ron. X3. Oleg also waved to Ron at the window. After Ron left, Caroline finally returned to normal and continued the quarrel with Max just now. Max, I really want to be your best friend, but it is obvious that you have a problem in your heart. Of course, Max did not tolerate bad habits. Come with me to the cold storage room. Ron left early. Of course, it was not because Peggy was watching him. He did not dare to have anything with the two women. He was afraid of Peggy, but Peggy knew his temper for a long time, so it was not a big deal. Maybe she had secretly seen him having sex with other women before. With that girl's moral integrity, this is very likely. The main reason Ron left was because he saw Harry's son had left early, and the stronger guy hesitated for a moment and chased him out. So, of course, Ron followed him out, and as he walked, he casually threw his expensive suit jacket into the trash can and loosened his tie a little. Before the strong man looked back in confusion, he turned his head and went into a small Chinese supermarket on the side of the road and bought a bottle of the cheapest wine. The latter continued to follow after turning around and not finding any suspicious people. Hey, dear, I have to remind you that you made a stupid decision. From my observation, this man should like petite girls. If you plan to use seduction to snatch a man from that rookie killer, you will probably miscalculate. Ron almost choked to death on a mouthful of wine. I suggest you read less of these indecent books. Ron gargled his mouth with wine, making sure that he would taste the inferior alcohol when he opened his mouth, then swallowed a little and spit out the rest, then raised the bottle over his head and poured it all over himself, hunched over, and immediately looked a few centimeters shorter than before. Then he instantly changed into drunk with blurred eyes and staggering steps, with a wrinkled expensive shirt, just like a middle-class person who had just gone bankrupt or divorced. Peggy couldn't help but applaud. Your acting skills are simply amazing. If I hadn't known you for many years, I would have thought that you just lost everything in the stock market. To be honest, even if you don't work as an agent, you can still make a living in Hollywood with your acting skills. Maybe the Oscar statuette will be yours. To be honest, do you want to consider changing your career? You know I don't like living in the spotlight, and you know that the Oscar statuette is not pure gold. Ron sang loudly in an aria-like tone. Passers-by frowned when they smelled the alcohol on him. He left in a hurry, saying damn drunkard. Several people in a row did not suspect that he was talking on the phone with others. They all thought it was just a drunk who was drunk. After a few rounds, he found the target again under Peggy's guidance. What's more amazing is that his appearance did not attract the attention of the two. Ron was so proud of himself that he was ready to act. He even took a few quick steps and arrogantly inserted himself between the two men. He threw himself directly on the sturdy man, staring at him and spitting out a mouthful of alcohol. Hey, boy, I'm talking to you. I'm an IRS agent. Have you paid your taxes recently? The sturdy man grabbed Ron's face and pushed him away in disgust. Drunk, get away from me. Chapter 84. My brother came out. Ron staggered around the corner and put the hidden earphones back into his ears. Ron, the Oscars really owe you a little, golden man. When I can't afford to eat in this business one day, I will definitely try Hollywood. Ron smiled proudly. You mean with your vixen who played in Transformers? Ron, women with Fox in their names must not be good women. You should open your eyes. So, the woman who drugged me is a good woman? If I'm not mistaken, it should be hydroxybutyric acid. The captain of the IRS Special Operations Team was actually drugged by a weak woman. If this gets out, I don't know how long his former colleagues will laugh. Although it's not shameful to fall under Peggy's hands, the problem is that others don't know. In everyone's impression, Peggy's image is just a young member, but a genius who fell quickly. Ron didn't dare to say it, but fortunately he learned chemistry knowledge well and roughly guessed a possibility. Yes, hydroxybutyric acid. I also took a sip of whiskey to help you evaporate faster. Don't worry, I set the dosage based on your physical examination data over the years. I guarantee that it will not cause any harm to your body, so the physical examination report can be used in this way." Ron felt upset. "Okay, how are the pair of glasses now?" Ron chose to change the subject. Because he had left the observable position, he could only observe them through the camera controlled by Peggy. "They left 5 minutes ago, so you played that scene in vain. How about it? Do you feel upset again?" "Of course not." Ron's eyes lit up. "Can you help me see if there is a car following them through the camera on the road? It will probably keep a distance of 3 to 5 cars, and follow them from a distance. The driver is a fierce-looking bald man. I played the whole scene just now for him." "OMG, there really is that person you said. How did you know?" Peggy exclaimed. "Of course, I rely on my many years of experience as an agent. The son of the deceased Harry is obviously a rookie. The veteran who trained him will definitely not trust him to act with him." Ron got into the car that had been prepared long ago and started it. "Tell you where the veteran is. I'm going to follow him now." "No need. I'll give you the coordinates of the old glass house. You just go there and wait." Ron's phone vibrated. Peggy sent the new location to his phone. As expected, it was Beverly Hills again, but this time it was a little further out, not in the core area. Probably because the housing prices there were cheaper. Ron drove there quickly, but unfortunately, when he arrived, the two men inside had already started fighting. After witnessing a boring fight between rookies, a dazzling reflection appeared in the corner of the room. It was the bald man. Arthur took action. The opportunity Ron had been waiting for finally came, so while the two killers were cleaning up the traces in the room, Ron somehow installed a tracker on Arthur's car. Then, he went home. As a well-funded agent, Ron was too lazy to take on two small shrimps. He only needed to install a tracker on Arthur's car to keep track of his movements. When he and the assassin company were really fighting, he would suddenly take action and achieve the greatest results. In Chinese terms, this is the fisherman who benefits from the quarrel between the snipe and the clam, and Ron is the fisherman. After saying goodbye to Peggy, he dragged his hungry body back home and remembered that he had not eaten much for dinner today, and the refrigerator was already empty. Penny may not be active enough in cleaning the house, but she is surprisingly diligent in cleaning the food in the refrigerator. Ron did not plan to go out to buy things, but directly opened the door of Sheldon's apartment next door with a spare key. According to Sheldon's habit, there would always be at least 3 days of food in the refrigerator, and it was very rich. But when he opened the door, he saw an extremely strange scene in the house. Sheldon half squatted at the table, looking at Leonard with his mouth wide open. His posture was extremely ambiguous, and Ron immediately had some bad associations after what he had experienced today. "Oh my God," Ron slapped his forehead, "I must have opened the door the wrong way." "Sheldon, my dear brother, have you finally come to your senses in terms of love? Although you made some mistakes in choosing your partner, don't worry, I will try to help you convince Mom." Leonard had a lot of question marks in his head. "Ron, what do you think we are doing? Aren't you asking my brother to bite you? Although I'm not gay, I don't despise it. I will still treat you as a member of my family if you marry me. Don't worry, because of your special situation, we won't ask you to change your surname, but it's better that one of your adopted children can inherit the Cooper surname." Ron smiled like an ant. "Ron, did you see the cotton swab in my hand?" Sheldon said angrily. Ron nodded thoughtfully. "So do homosexuals need to disinfect before doing this?" I've learned it. No. "Ron, you're wrong. Sheldon asked me to help him take a sample of the bacteria in his throat. He suspected he was sick." Leonard was troubled by the two Cooper brothers. "Suspect he was sick? Well, this is very Sheldon." Ron shook his head regretfully. "Well, although you may not believe it, and I don't believe it either, but our family really took him to see a doctor. At least he is in good spirits now and is not sick." We are talking about Penny. Penny just came back from a place full of patients today, and it is very likely that she brought the virus from that place back with her. She even stayed in our room for more than 10 minutes. Now this room is simply a large virus culture dish, Sheldon. Penny doesn't have any symptoms. I'm sure she won't be contagious. Leonard turned around and yelled at Sheldon helplessly. "Please." Sheldon's pathological fear continued to break out. If the flu is only contagious after symptoms appear, it should have disappeared thousands of years ago. In the early days when they started using stone tools and creating murals, the wise men would have found a way to get rid of the runny-nosed guys. Ron walked past Sheldon, who was still chattering, opened the refrigerator and took out the milk. He also took out a box of cereal and made himself a bowl of oatmeal and sat back on the sofa. Honestly, guys, if Penny hadn't eaten up everything I put in the refrigerator, I really wouldn't want to see your farce. Chapter 85. Sheldon. Penny. Sheldon suddenly raised his voice and lifted the hem of his nightgown to cover most of his face. Penny again, what's wrong? Don't tell me you just came from your apartment. You have been contaminated. Now you are a walking source of infection, do you know that? Sheldon carefully took out a bottle of disinfectant and sprayed it curtain wall in the air. Only in this way can he feel safe from the virus, while Leonard and Ron stared at him in amazement as he continued to act stupidly. To be honest, even if Ron has seen this scene many times, he still feels super stupid when he sees it again. Don't you think you are overreacting a little? I don't want to accompany you to act stupidly, I want to go back to sleep. Leonard turned around and wanted to leave, but was stopped by Sheldon again. Wait, Sheldon handed him a cup. Put this in the bathroom. Leonard looked at the cup, a little confused. What for? I want to measure my body fluid intake and discharge to make sure my kidney function is not failing. Leonard's face changed immediately. Even an honest man would get angry. Sheldon. This is the cup I use to make cakes. No, this lab vessel has always been used to hold urine. Ha ha ha. Ron, who was sitting in the best viewing position, laughed so hard that he fell backwards, causing the gay duo to glare at him. You have the time to label everything in the room, can't you take at least 10 seconds to label it as urinal? Sheldon took the cup from the roaring Leonard and turned it over to reveal the bottom of the cup. Here, I guess I should write an apology letter to Betty Crocker. Leonard's dragon roar finally stopped. Betty Crocker is a TV program that teaches people how to cook. Leonard learned how to make pastries from this program. Then, because the final taste was not as good as he said, he made a special complaint. But before leaving, Leonard did not let Ron have an easy time. He watched for a while and laughed while Ron kept putting the snacks on the table into his mouth. Yes, those pastries, I made them with this thing. Leonard shook the cup in his hand at Ron. Ron felt nauseous, scratched his throat with his fingers, pushed Leonard away and rushed into the bathroom. Sheldon, isn't that the specialty that Penny brought today? Of course I know. Leonard was very proud of finally succeeding in making fun of Ron. No words were spoken that night. The next morning, Leonard woke up in fear when Sheldon called him. Leonard. I'm really sick. Leonard rolled over, put on a coat, picked up his shoes and rushed out the door. Before leaving, he knocked on Ron's door with an apologetic look. Leonard. Ron rubbed his sleepy eyes and opened the door, looking at his watch. I don't remember you being the kind of rude person who would wake up the neighbors at 6:30. Ron. Leonard shook Ron's body hard. Sheldon is sick. Ron woke up immediately, not even bothering to wash up, and quickly changed his clothes and went out with Leonard. Not long after they went downstairs, Sheldon, wrapped in a small quilt, knocked on Ron's apartment door. Ron, who ran downstairs, breathed a sigh of relief and patted Leonard on the shoulder. Luckily you're here, or I'd definitely be entangled by that annoying guy. Leonard was about to reply after taking 2 deep breaths when his cell phone rang. It was Sheldon's call. Leonard, where are you? I'm at work. Leonard made up an excuse. 6:30 on Sunday morning? Right, that's right. Leonard turned on the speakerphone, and Sheldon coughed from inside. As I predicted, I'm really sick. My temperature has been rising exponentially since 2 in the morning, and the amount of blood in my sputum is alarmingly high. Nonsense. If you don't sleep at night and get up every hour to measure your temperature, you'll get sick even if you're not sick, Ron complained in a low voice. Ron? Leonard, is Ron with you? Sheldon shouted. Ron really wanted to slap himself in the face. How could he forget this kid's super hearing? He quickly used his eyes to frantically signal Leonard to help him out, but the next moment, Leonard stuffed the phone into his hand unkindly. Ron glared at him fiercely. Just wait, I'll remember this grudge, and next time Penny comes to me, I'll ask your future wife to get it back. Yes, Sheldon, it's me. I'm with Leonard, and we're planning to do some research. What are you doing together? Ahem, you don't know anything about physics again. Although he wanted to beat this naughty kid who was still scary even when he was an adult, Ron could only suppress his anger and coax him for the sake of his mother and grandmother. I have a project that I need scientists to help me study. It's about mechanical engineering. Are you interested in coming together? You let a genius in theoretical physics study mechanical engineering? What's the difference between this and you using a full-level World of Warcraft account to kill monsters in the Novus village? Sheldon's tone was full of disdain. Forget it, let's get busy first. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up." After saying that, Ron quickly pressed the hang up button without waiting for Sheldon to react and speak. "Thanks, brother." Leonard stroked his knee and stretched out a fist. "If you hadn't asked, I wouldn't know how to get back to you." "How did you come up with the idea of researching mechanical engineering?" Ron touched his hand and said, "Because I'm really working on this thing. In fact, Howard and Rajesh have already helped me do it, and now I can have you as one more person. As a reward for saving you from Sheldon's clutches, it's not too much to work for me for a day." Although Ron didn't understand the connection between experimental physics and mechanical engineering, if he remembered correctly, Leonard also had strong hands-on skills and had made navigation equipment with Howard. Leonard didn't expect that he would just get out of the tiger's mouth and fall into the wolf's den. "Can these two brothers stop grabbing me and fleecing me? Can I not go?" Leonard wanted to have a good rest on the weekend that he finally got. He didn't even want to work overtime, let alone work for free. Of course, Ron grinned, making Leonard feel a little uneasy. "But I will call my dear brother and tell him that Leonard has come home again for something. What do you think?" No, can't I go?" Leonard had no choice but to compromise. "P.S. I can't write anymore. The next update will be tomorrow morning. I will guarantee 2 updates tomorrow, and try to update 3 updates next time." Chapter 86 Drone. Thanks to the 2 phone calls Leonard made on the way, Howard and Rajesh successfully escaped and arrived at Caltech about 10 minutes later than Ron and the other 2. With a flight control program provided by Peggy and the hands-on skills of the 3 scientists, Ron's drone finally flew into the sky successfully. It was about the same size as the one he had played with in his previous life, and could carry no more than 3 kilograms of weight. In Howard's words, this was already the limit of this size. If the load capacity was to be increased, the size could only be increased, and the weight of the battery would also have to be increased accordingly. "Okay, let's do it this way first," Ron said with some disappointment. "I want to know how far it can fly, because it is a lithium battery. It can fly farther, about 2 or 3 kilometers, but the remote control distance is only 1 kilometer, which is enough for a toy." As the chief engineer, Howard immediately grabbed the control of the new toy. Under the envious eyes of the other 2 Atticus, he was the first to test fly and had a lot of fun. "Who said I just want to use it as a toy?" Ron's eyes kept rolling. "Don't you think it would be fun to use it to secretly send 3 kilograms of TNT to someone's buttocks and then detonate it?" The 3 little Atticus were shocked after hearing this, and even forgot to control the drone. They didn't even notice that it fell from the sky. Fortunately, Howard's workmanship was solid and it didn't break. "Ron, didn't you say at the beginning that you wanted to make a toy?" Howard asked with a stutter. Ron asked with a smile on his face, "Why? Is it not qualified as a toy?" "Qualified? Of course it is qualified, but," Ron interrupted him without waiting for him to finish, "you are scientists. You must know that all scientific advances were originally used for military purposes, right? What? Do you feel guilty when your achievements are used to kill people?" The 3 heads nodded together, and Ron couldn't help laughing in his heart. Although these 3 guys have super IQs, they are too simple and cute, right? "Then let me comfort you." Ron smiled wickedly. He vaguely remembered that in the original timeline, the 3 or so people who made the navigation device were also worried about whether it would be used in the military. At that time, the military personnel said this: "What you made for me is just a drone, not a big killer like the Death Star or Transformers. As for what I do with it, what does it have to do with you?" When he said the last sentence, Ron deliberately released a hint of murderous intent, and the 3 little scientists were frightened and quickly shrank their necks. "The patent is as I said. Each of you 2 will take 20%, and the remaining 60% will be my exclusive." As for Leonard, Ron dragged out a long-tail tone. When Leonard heard his name being called, he immediately straightened his chest, but Ron's next words disappointed him. "Leonard is here to work for free, so not only will you not get any shares, but you won't even get any salary." Ron smiled wickedly, and only spoke again when he saw Leonard hanging his head like a defeated little rooster. "However, I can help you pursue Penny. Apart from exchanging rooms with you, everything else can be discussed. There is no other way. Although Sheldon is my brother, as you all know, few people can get along well with him for more than a week. From this perspective, I even admire your good temper. If it were me, I would cut Sheldon into pieces and feed him to the dog in a week at most." Howard and Rajesh nodded in unison. Only the good guy Leonard was still a little hesitant. "Wouldn't it be a bit too cruel to do this, then cut it neatly?" Ron asked with his head tilted. "Leonard, this is indeed his real brother. Ron clapped his hands. Okay, let's change the subject. Anyway, you have nowhere else to go today because of Sheldon. Why don't you help me make 2 more toys like this? It just so happens that I may have a big job recently. No problem. Is it exactly the same? Howard patted his chest and guaranteed it immediately. Let me think about it. Ron thought for a while. I want a few smaller ones than this one, at least the kind that can carry a kilogram of TNT and fly around, preferably fast enough, and then give me a bigger one. I want to try to put a submachine gun on it, so that it can become an aerial firepower point. What do you think? Howard was shocked, but still nodded with difficulty. Anyway, he was already on the pirate ship. What else could he do? But Ron's next words finally made him feel a little better. I will have a guy send you $10,000 as procurement fee later. If it's not enough, come to me again, and he will also bring you the weapons you may need. Come on, I believe in you. After saying that, Ron waved his sleeves and said goodbye to everyone. Leonard put the parts in his hand together depressedly. So, we are here to become workers on the arms production line on this rare weekend. Rajesh, what else can we do? Do you want to go back to take care of Sheldon? Absolutely not. Leonard shook his head quickly. Work hard, brothers. Howard tiptoed to the door, observed Ron completely left, and then came back and announced to everyone with great pride, brothers, guess who will get nearly $2,000 of extra funds due to cost control? Let's go to the bar tonight and have a good time. How about it? Yes, Howard won a round of cheers as expected. After Ron left, he neither went home nor returned to the company. Instead, he turned on the computer in the car. The tracker placed yesterday had taken effect. A red dot on the map of Los Angeles on the computer was flashing. The location was in the city center, near an office building not far from the restaurant where Max worked. Ron said to himself, what are these 2 guys doing? Maybe it's a new mission, Peggy reminded in the headset. New mission? Do you mean their target is on that building? Ron vaguely remembered that before the complete breakup with the assassin company, Arthur and his rookie did carry out another mission. It was just that it had been so long that he could no longer remember clearly, so he could only rely on Peggy. Peggy, can you help me check what companies are in that building? The more suspicious ones? It would be even better if you could help me find those 2 bastards from the surveillance. No need to check, I can tell you right now, their target must be Haim, a cult leader of the Los Angeles branch of Scientology. Chapter 87 Recruiting Guoda. On the rooftop of an office building in Los Angeles, 2 bald figures were running like crazy. Ron, who was watching from the next building with a telescope, couldn't help but sigh. In order to better observe the actions of the 2 killers, Ron found a very good observation point in the opposite building and set up a high-powered telescope. From this angle, he could even vaguely see through the curtains that the cult leader, who was twice as wide as Hank, harassing the new female secretary. These 2 little hooligans are really good at fighting. How do you think that old cripple Harry gave birth to such a flexible son? Could he not be his biological son, boss? The information says that Harry's leg injury was caused by stepping on a landmine on the battlefield. Hank was looking at the information and correcting it halfway, but was interrupted by Ron waving his hand. Then do you know what type of mine Harry stepped on? I really don't know that. It was Betty who jumped the mine, and his son was born after he came back. Ron narrowed his eyes. So now you understand why his son inherited nothing after old Harry died. I understand, boss, but I don't understand. Why are you telling me this? Hank asked with a little confusion. Think about it, what is the most valuable legacy left by Harry? The house confiscated by the bank? Or the little bank deposit left? Ron showed a playful expression. None of them, but the assassination skills taught by old Harry. With this, he can make money wherever he goes. The most interesting thing is that Arthur is an orphan, and the place where he was born happened to be where old Harry was stationed when he was a soldier. Do you really think this is a coincidence? Well, even if Arthur is Harry's illegitimate son, what use is it to us? What do you think? I use this as a bargaining chip to recruit him? It's time to add a master with strong assault capabilities and proficient in special operations to my special operations team. After a series of infiltrations that Ron could not observe, the 2 killers appeared in the room of the cult leader like ghosts when they reappeared, and he had just injected himself with drugs and was entering the most cool part. At this moment, he really felt that God was talking to him. But the killer standing next to him was destined to make him see only the god of death. Hank opened his mouth in surprise, but he is obviously a killer. Ron patted Hank's shoulder comfortingly. There's nothing magical about recruiting killers. In our intelligence agencies, we often do this. You have to learn to adapt. Not to mention killers, even drug dealers, as long as they are valuable, they are eligible to be recruited. You don't really think that the black boss selling fried chicken has established a nationwide sales network by his own strength, isn't it? Of course not. If there is no shadow of the CIA behind him, I would never believe it. Ron curled his lips. It can be said that it is a traditional skill of the CIA to use drugs to cause trouble outside. It is an open secret in the intelligence circle. Otherwise, do you think I can't see that there is a problem with the account he handed over to us? What a joke. A nationwide drug sales network with such a small profit, who would believe it? If the fried chicken uncle really only has such a little ability, he might as well find a class to attend, although Hank was the deputy director of the DEA before. His rank was several levels lower than that of the IRS. These things were not something he could touch at all. He was so surprised that he couldn't close his mouth. Ron had to pull his chin to help him close his mouth. However, with this kind of information that shocked his worldview, Hank found that it was not so difficult for him to accept the sheltering of the killer. So, boss, what should we do? Ron just opened his mouth when a burst of tat-tat gunfire came from the building next door. The whereabouts of Arthur and the other two were finally discovered by the bodyguards of the cult leader, and they immediately attacked the two. Ron opened a large travel bag at his feet, gave one of the two sniper rifles in it to Hank, and took the other one himself. Try not to reveal your identity. I will find an opportunity to contact them later. You stay here and be responsible for sniper support. After saying that, he set up the sniper rifle and aimed at the opposite side. Because in this short while, the gunfight on the opposite building has spread from inside the building to the rooftop. Arthur came out of the door and rolled on the ground, rolled to the edge of the rooftop, stepped on the window sill downstairs and hid his whole body on the platform with a height difference, while the two armed bodyguards had chased him to the rooftop. But Arthur did not shoot. Haha, this unlucky guy, his bullets are all used up. Ron observed Arthur's embarrassing situation with a scope and couldn't help laughing. Boss, I don't understand. Do you want to recruit him, or hope he dies? Remember what I said just now? If he can't even solve this situation, there is no value in being recruited by me. Do you know how difficult it is to get a pardon from the FBI? The two stupid bodyguards who chased to the rooftop were looking for him on the rooftop, which gave Arthur a good opportunity to defeat them one by one. Arthur continued to curl up under the rooftop and didn't move until one of the bodyguards approached. He suddenly jumped out, grabbed the bodyguard's feet and threw him off the roof. The bodyguard fell heavily from the top of the building hundreds of meters high to the ground, and instantly turned into a pool of minced meat. It's ruthless, I like it. Ron licked his lips. He was very satisfied with this new subordinate who was about to come, while Hank thought of the minced meat sandwich he had eaten in the morning and felt uncomfortable in his stomach. Ron patted Hank on the shoulder. Hey, look, these two smart guys actually came up with such a great idea to slide down from the upstairs using a cable car. You should lose some weight. If it were you, this rope might not be able to bear your weight. If it were me, I wouldn't fall into this situation. I would kill them before they force me there, Hank said unconvinced. At this time, the assassin team on the other side encountered some difficulties. When they were halfway down, a bodyguard finally discovered their plan, broke the window and fired wildly at them as they were falling. Bang! 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 Several consecutive shots grazed the two people's bodies. Hank, give them a hand, Ron ordered. Hank had pointed the muzzle of the gun at the bodyguard's position from just now. Hearing the order, his fingers moved slightly, and a fatal bullet whizzed out of the gun barrel. It hit the center of the forehead. The next moment, a bloody hole appeared on the bodyguard's forehead, and he fell from the window like a broken sack. Ron was very satisfied to appreciate Guoda's surprised expression through the scope. Very good, now I'll go say hello to our new friend. Chapter 88 Arthur's Killer Code. Arthur's first killer rule: before taking action on the target, no matter how detailed a background check is, it is not excessive. So before taking action on the cult leader, even if the company has put all the intelligence in front of him, he still took the time to verify each piece of intelligence one by one to ensure that there is no mistake. Arthur's second killer rule: all actions must have a careful plan, but when the plan fails and can only enter a chaotic battle, improvisation is the new plan. Arthur also implemented it in this way. When the assassination was completed, he was about to be discovered by the bodyguard who moved the mirror before he could withdraw. Arthur immediately shot the bodyguard in the head. Arthur's third killer rule: before all assassination plans, there must be a more careful retreat plan, and the best retreat plan is to act separately. So, Arthur was holding a passport obtained through special means, sitting at the Ontario International Airport, preparing to take a connecting flight to the UK. The identity of this passport is a mechanical engineer. The name is not important. Anyway, it is a person who has never existed. But Arthur guarantees that this passport is absolutely real. Even if the police come, they can't find any flaws, because this is an identity obtained through formal channels. The United States is the base camp of capitalist society. In this place, as long as you have money, there is nothing you can't do. At this moment, Arthur is sitting on a chair in the airport waiting hall, drinking coffee, thinking about the identity of the sniper who helped him in the assassination today. Is it another killer who came to assassinate the leader of the cult? It is definitely impossible. The underground world where the killer lives also has rules. Once a task is assigned to the killer, unless he has failed, another killer must not be sent to perform the task at the same time. Is that some other force wants him dead, but does not hire a killer but uses its own people? This kind of thing often happens in the killer world, but it is impossible in this case. The reason can be found in the second rule of the killer code. When he conducted a background check on the target, he investigated all his enemies. This target naturally has other enemies besides the force that hired him. But they were not strong enough to send their own people, and even to raise Arthur's own salary was a problem. You know, Arthur is a golden sideboard of the company, and the fee for him is definitely not something that ordinary people can afford. Just when Arthur was puzzled, a tall man with an elegant walking posture walked into the terminal. He looked pretentious and was a British guy who liked to claim to be noble. If he was on the street at night, Arthur was almost sure that such a man would be beaten up. But Arthur also knew that such a person would never wander alone in Los Angeles at night. The reason was simple. Arthur recognized that the brand of the suit on him was the very famous British Royal Tailor Shop, a shop with the title of royal and only accepting private customization. Any ordinary suit would cost about $100,000, which was a luxury for the rich. Arthur had only seen it on a few big-name mission targets so far. The rich man casually walked in front of Arthur in the hall and greeted him with a fluent British accent. "Hello, dear friend, can I sit next to you?" He didn't say much, but he revealed a strong aristocratic temperament, which made Arthur very uncomfortable. Although there were many other empty seats in the waiting hall, in order not to make himself look suspicious, Arthur still reluctantly moved to the side. "Thank you very much, my friend. My name is Ron." Ron raised his head and stretched out his hand to Arthur. "There is really no way I have to sit with you. The girls in your country are too enthusiastic. If I sit there, I will definitely be torn to pieces by those enthusiastic girls." Ron winked at the other row of girls who were traveling together, and immediately received a passionate kiss from the girls in response. But Arthur didn't think of touching his hand, because Ron's posture of extending his hand was really too annoying. While extending his hand, he deliberately raised his chin very high, and his fingers drooped slightly, as if shaking hands with Arthur was giving him a great honor. "Or, you can go sit with the black guys over there." "No, no, no." Ron shook his head. "Those black friends look too friendly, as cute as talk show actors. It's better to sit with you." "Excuse me, you don't look like a good person." This sentence made Arthur's blood pressure soar. He almost couldn't resist the urge to kill this annoying guy. Although he didn't have any weapons, as a professional killer, he had 10,000 ways to kill this British guy with only showy muscles. Seeing that Arthur lowered his head and didn't speak, the annoying Ron continued to chat with him enthusiastically. "I am a businessman traveling between the UK and the US, mainly in the whiskey business. I guess you must have drunk my wine, but it's a pity that I'm in a hurry to go back to London today, and my bodyguards are on holiday." "What do you do?" Arthur gritted his teeth and continued to resist the urge to kill him without speaking, but in action, he moved to space and sat on the chair next to him. When meeting such an annoying guy, such rejection behavior is absolutely natural and will not arouse the slightest suspicion from others. But Ron is like sticky candy. As soon as Arthur moved, he also moved and stuck to him. Arthur glared at him fiercely, but Ron was still well-mannered and continued to maintain an aristocratic fake smile on his face. Ron ignored Arthur's warning eyes and moved his face closer and closer until the two looked like they were whispering to each other. Then he said in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "I guess you are a killer, right?" Arthur's heart was alarmed, and the fingers in his pockets instantly clenched into a fist. As long as Ron did something wrong, he would explode and take him down immediately, but he still pretended to be indifferent. "Sir, I don't understand what you are saying. Can you please stop harassing me? If you continue, I will call the security personnel to deal with the dispute between us, then you can try to call my dear Mr. Richard Smith." Ron smiled even more. "If I'm not mistaken, you should be using this identity this time? To be honest, you are really a genius. This is not a compliment. Every year you use this identity to live on the farm in Orange County for a period of time, right? Even the old lady in the house next door remembers you. If the police go to ask, there must be no flaws." Ron smiled and continued to say words that made Arthur shudder, and Arthur's nerves had completely collapsed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Cat Song. "Who are you?" Arthur's eyes widened, and his whole body tensed up like a large cat ready to attack. He was just waiting for Ron to kill him immediately if he said anything wrong, and then he would break out of the airport and find another opportunity to leave this place of trouble. "Relax, my friend, I have no ill will towards you. If I must say it, you should say thank you to me," Ron said with an unfathomable look on his face. "It really feels good to be so pretentious, doesn't it?" "Thank you." Arthur immediately thought of the mysterious sniper who helped him escape in the morning, and Ron seemed to understand what he was thinking. He nodded slightly, made a rifle-aiming gesture, and dubbed to himself. Bang! Another sniper whose origin was completely unknown appeared in his assassination operation. Except for himself and Harry's son, no fourth person knew about it. He didn't even have time to report the existence of another force to the company. Under normal circumstances, the first question ordinary people would ask when encountering such a thing is usually "Who are you? Why are you helping me?" and other questions, but Arthur is different. His first question was, "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to join us." "Sorry, I don't have any idea of switching to another company for the time being." Arthur didn't show any surprise. "Of course, it may be hidden very well. In fact, when this matter is completely over, I plan to quit." "You have found the wrong person. Are you sure you don't want to listen to the conditions I can offer first?" Ron was a little depressed when he was rejected by Arthur as soon as he opened his mouth. "No," Arthur continued to refuse. "You know I am a killer who will do anything for money. If you offer too much, I am almost sure that I will be tempted." "Okay." Ron did not continue to pester, but stood up and handed a business card to Arthur. "You are always welcome to change your mind." Arthur wanted to move quickly at this time, and put Ron's business card in his pocket without even looking at it. Ron saw his action and didn't care. "You little guy, do you really think that the man I like can still run away? I don't believe you won't come back to find me. Before leaving, I'll give you a very useful piece of information." Ron was not in a hurry to leave. Sometimes, what you think is not what you think it is. Even if you see someone you thought was dead one day, don't be too surprised. After brainstorming, Ron finally remembered the plot and turned around. At the moment he turned around, Arthur looked through the gap he had just made and was immediately attracted by a figure. With his mouth tightly pursed and his pupils slightly dilated, Ron followed his gaze and saw an inconspicuous four-eyed businessman walking through the terminal towards the boarding gate. Ron understood that this was probably the killer who lied to Arthur that he was dead by the killer company. Have a good time. This time, Ron really left, but he was sure that Arthur would call him soon. On the other side, Penny, who was annoyed by Sheldon, had no choice but to take leave and take Sheldon home, but it turned out that Penny was still naive. How difficult is a sick Sheldon? The answer is more than 10 times the normal model of Sheldon. Even Leonard, the incarnation of a licking dog, would not hesitate to give up the opportunity to lick the goddess, but to avoid Sheldon at this time. Sheldon and Penny finally returned to the apartment. This time, Sheldon rarely thanked Penny politely. "Thank you for taking me home, it's okay. Anyway, I don't need to go to work today." "That's good, okay, Sheldon. I wish you a speedy recovery." Penny was almost crazy playing with her fingers. The half hour in the restaurant just now was the most tormenting half an hour since she started working. Now she just wanted to go back to the room and drink a bottle of whiskey to see if she could clear the memory of Gideon. Penny swore in her heart that if Sheldon didn't have an agent brother who could take out a whole arsenal at any time, she would have drowned Sheldon in the soup he ordered just now. Wait, Where are you going? Sheldon yelled in shock. Are you just going to leave me like this? Sheldon, you are already grown up. Have you never been sick before? Of course I have, but someone has always taken care of me. Sheldon took the care of the people around him for granted. This time it was Penny who was shocked. She couldn't imagine that an adult in his 20s had never lived independently. Really? You've never been alone? Well, there was one time. Sheldon thought for a moment. I was 15, and I was at Heidelberg College in Germany during the summer vacation, studying abroad. Penny guessed. No, I went to be a visiting professor. Sheldon's answer made her heart ache. The local food was a little more special than I expected, so I was a little uncomfortable with the local climate and had a stomach ache that night. Didn't anyone take care of you at that time? My mother accompanied my father to the summer league. At that time, there was only one housekeeper in the college who didn't speak English. When I finally let him know that I was sick, she said, "Möchtest du eine Darmspiegelung?" Penny certainly couldn't understand German. What does that mean? Based on what happened later, I think it should mean, do you want an enema? Sheldon said in a difficult way. The tragedy that happened to Sheldon finally awakened Penny's maternal brilliance, so she made the stupidest decision, a decision that was even stupider than sending Sheldon home. Okay, honey, I'll take care of you. What do you need me to do? Sheldon opened the door and invited Penny in. He waited until the door was closed before he spoke. My mother usually uses a sponge to clean my body. It must be said that Sheldon's emotional intelligence has really improved after being rejected for a long time. Penny finally realized what stupid things she had just said, but she had already gotten on the pirate ship, so she could only make 3 rules with Sheldon. I will never give you an enema without a sponge. Okay, Sheldon agreed with a little disappointment. So, when Ron pushed open the door of Sheldon's apartment and planned to find something to eat from his refrigerator, a not-so-nice out-of-tune singing voice came into his ears. Good cat, warm cat, little fluffy ball happy cat, sleepy cat, woo woo woo. It was Penny singing. Oh no, Sheldon, this naughty kid is back again. He was so busy thinking about how to recruit Guoda that he forgot that there was a debt collector waiting at home. Sheldon, who was lying listlessly on the bed, immediately stood up. Leonard, is that you? P.S. This is the last update of this month. Please forgive me. I will make it up tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Thank you. Chapter 90. What's your choice? Being caught, Ron shook his head helplessly, and was about to agree to deal with Sheldon. There was no other way. Sheldon was the favorite child of the 2 women in the family. If he was left alone, he would definitely be scolded. Frankly speaking, he would rather face the siege of 10 agents with Guoda's face than stay alone with Sheldon for more than 3 hours. But at this moment, the door was opened again with a squeak, and a drone equipped with a simple mechanical arm was stuffed in from outside the door. The more Ron looked at it, the more familiar it looked. Isn't this the initial model of the drone that Howard and the others helped me make? Ron laughed dumbly. These Oedipus are good at hands-on, so the professional scapegoat is already in place? Ron pushed open the door, and there were 3 stunned Oedipus scientists outside. As expected, Leonard's glasses broke again, and he squinted for a long time before recognizing that it was Ron. Before he could say anything, Ron grabbed Leonard, who was still rubbing his eyes, and threw him into the house, closing the door from the outside. I'm going to have dinner. Do you 2 want to come with me? The 2 nerdy scientists nodded in tacit understanding. Leonard in the house was just caught by Penny, who was exhausted by Sheldon. Leonard waved to Penny stupidly and said hello. Hi, Penny, you are such a piece of shit. Penny shook her head. You deliberately made me suffer here with Sheldon. I can't help it. I have no choice. You also saw what Sheldon looks like when he is sick, Leonard explained hurriedly. Penny, I'm hungry, the crying Sheldon called from the bedroom. Honey, I have good news. Leonard is back. Penny stuffed the ointment that she had just used to wipe Sheldon's chest hair into Leonard's hand in the face of Leonard's horror. Lidu, good luck. Bye. Leonard, I'm hungry, Sheldon called someone else. Penny, please take me with you. Leonard followed Penny's footsteps and ran out, but unfortunately he bumped into a pillar with a bang after just a few steps. Sheldon came out wrapped in a small blanket and said, I want to eat a grilled cheese sandwich. An hour later, Sheldon got his wish and ate a grilled cheese sandwich, while Leonard lay on the sofa with a big ice pack on his head, feeling extremely depressed. Of course, if he knew what the culprit who caused him to be caught by Sheldon was doing, he would probably be more balanced. At this time, in downtown Los Angeles, Ron brought 2 little Otaku scientists to the door of the Williamsburg restaurant where Max and Caroline worked. Man, You mean that your two girls know each other's existence, but pretend not to know? This is really amazing. How did you do it? If you can teach me, I am willing to swear to Shiva that I will not charge a penny for all the work you give me in the future, Rajesh said in surprise with envy. To be precise, the one with the big breasts knows, but the one with the long legs doesn't. Although she seems to have a higher IQ and graduated from Wharton Business School, I think the one with the big breasts is smarter. Ron spread his palms helplessly. Wharton Business School, tisk tisk. The two little Atticus looked at each other with disdain. Howard raised his doubts. Although Wharton Business School is not very good, I really can't imagine that its graduates work in such a place. This is not difficult to understand. There is a contempt chain among the top students in the United States. Simply put, those in the natural sciences look down on those in the engineering field, and those in the humanities are at the bottom of all the contempt chains. In Sheldon's words, don't you just rely on memory to learn things in the humanities and sciences? Although he himself has a master's degree in literature, it is a typical arrogance of science and engineering towards the humanities. There are profound reasons behind this. I'll tell you slowly when I have a chance. In short, it's a story about an upper-class lady who can only stay here temporarily due to some unfortunate reasons, but I believe their cupcake business will always be successful. Guys, Ron cleared his throat. You are not Sheldon. I don't need to remind you how rude this expression is. Right, Howard, don't worry, we promise to be gentlemen. Upper class? Can you convince your girlfriend to introduce some girls to us? If she can let me have sex with any woman in the Kardashian family, I would rather live on their cupcakes for the rest of my life. I have to say, Howard is really addicted to being a loser. You think you can get your hands on the best defensive player in NBA history? The women of the Kardashian family only like basketball player-sized XX. Ron patted Howard's shoulder earnestly. Unless you go to the Philippines for a special surgery, or go to the sewers in New York and grow 4 Westbrooks to team up and win the championship ring, otherwise you have no chance at all. As the three of them were talking, they had unknowingly walked to the vicinity of a good restaurant. Through the glass window, they could just see two beauties who looked like what Ron described slapping each other. Hey, Ron, I think you need to come over and take a look, Howard said to Ron while lying on the transparent glass with an excited look on his face. Maybe they have discovered your relationship with the other party and are fighting over you? Do you think they will tear each other's clothes off? Rajesh quickly leaned over and watched the situation inside through the glass with Howard. Ron rolled his eyes helplessly. Believe me, although I am very charming, if they get angry because of me, the only result is that they will abandon me together and have lesbian sex. In this case, I will have to eat something, go home like you, and then take a suspiciously long bath. Ron, you are actually planning to abandon us, Howard accused. Look, if it were you. Ron bent down and approached the glass window with the two of them. On one side is a busted beauty and a long-legged cute girl, and on the other side is a B-cup Indian brother. Which side would you choose? Hey. I don't have a B-cup. Rajesh felt offended. Of course I choose the busted brother. Howard chose to lie with his eyes open under Rajesh's affectionate gaze. Then I wish you two have fun. If it were me, I would choose the inside. Ron stood up and was about to take his two friends in. At the front door of the restaurant, a white man with a nervous look, wearing a suit inside and a bent windbreaker outside, pushed the door open and rushed in. The experienced Ron saw at a glance that there was something under his clothes. Wait here for a moment. Ron stopped the two little Atticus who were about to enter the store. What's the matter, Ron? Are you going to abandon us now? Ron's eyes were sharp. Of course not. But if nothing unexpected happens, there may be a robbery inside. Are you sure you want to go in together? Chapter 91, Scared. The two little Atticus were immediately scared and turned pale. Should we call the police? Or should we run away before he finds us? Rajesh covered his mouth in fear. Do you think he will drag us all into the restaurant to kill us? I am a Hindu believer and I cannot be cut up by a knife that has been used to cut beef. Did you two forget something? Ron was confused by Rajesh's nonsense. Didn't you see that I am such a big man? What? The two Atticus asked with scared eyes. What is my profession? Yes. 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 Howard clenched his fists as if he had found a treasure. You are an IRS agent. If you call the police, they will definitely come faster. What are you waiting for? Call for backup. Quiet. Ron knocked on each of their heads. It's just a robbery, a small scene. I can handle it in minutes. It's just for your safety, especially don't hold me back. Can you two please wait over there first? No problem. The two of them ran to hide behind a trash can on the opposite street without looking back. Their movements were so skillful that Ron wondered how many drills they had gone through to achieve such a level. In the restaurant, Max, who didn't notice any danger at all, walked up to the robber with a swagger. She just thought he was an ordinary customer. "Hello, how can I help you?" Max said, and couldn't help but complain about herself. "Wow, this tone is so sincere that I am about to cry. When you sit in my section, you will see the real me." The white man didn't show any signs of being touched by her joke. "I have a question. Do you want to live for today?" Max actually thought about it. "Is it okay? God is my witness." Max really didn't think much about it. Working in a place like this, she doesn't know how many middle-aged boys and middle-aged people like this who run around in windbreakers in the hot summer are seen every day. The white man's left hand inserted into his coat held something hidden in his clothes and raised it to Max. "Judging from the shape, it should be a gun. Do you see this? Go and ask everyone in the restaurant to put their belongings in their bags into this bag. If you cooperate obediently, everyone will be safe." The white man took out a black plastic bag from his other pocket with his right hand and handed it to Max. Okay. Max was obviously very experienced in dealing with this kind of thing. "But I don't know how much money you can collect, because most of the customers here pay with coins or tomatoes from their own fields." The white man didn't say anything, but leaned against a wall and nervously pointed his gun at any suspicious movement in the house, and then used a fierce look to signal Max to hurry up. Max was the first to find Earl. While using the ATM to withdraw money, Earl did not forget to comfort Max. "Max, I have experience in robbing and being robbed. It's best to follow his wishes." As he said that, Earl put the money in the ATM into a plastic bag. Ron, who was watching through the window, clearly saw that after showing the robber the empty ATM drawer, he didn't take out a penny from his body from beginning to end. He was really an experienced old man. He could tell at a glance that this white man was a novice and didn't know how to check one by one. But when Max walked to Caroline, something went wrong. Caroline screamed in panic, and halfway through her scream, the robber glared at her and choked her back. "I can't believe I just saved $2 and it's about to be robbed." Caroline rummaged through her bag with a crying voice. "Max, I can't die. Even if I die, I can't die in this ugly uniform." "Of course it looks good on you, but..." Halfway through her words, Caroline felt a warm current and a strange look appeared on her face. Max asked with concern, "Hey, are you having a heart attack?" "I peed my pants." Caroline was scared and embarrassed. "I'm not scared to shit, I'm scared to pee, and I can't stop." Stop quickly. "Hold on, girl." The robber noticed the abnormality here and came over and pointed the gun at Caroline. "Come out from behind the counter." Caroline was almost embarrassed and cried, "Sorry, sir, I can't do it." "Why?" "Because I'm peeing." Caroline was extremely ashamed. "Are you not done peeing yet?" Max was surprised. Caroline nodded awkwardly. "Girls, get out of the way. Let me take care of this bastard." Oleg was a rare man, and walked out of the kitchen with a baseball bat, intending to fight the robber. Unfortunately, he slipped and fell unconscious on Caroline's urine halfway through, and never woke up again. "Get out now." The robber felt insulted. "Otherwise I will." At this time, Ron finally walked around outside, confirmed that there were no other accomplices, pushed open the door and came in. Seeing Caroline's expression, he knew that he was still a step late. "Stop." The robber saw that there was another new person coming, but he didn't show any joy. Instead, he became more nervous. If it weren't for the smell of urine in the air, he would even suspect that the bitch who had just peed her pants was lying. But Ron not only didn't listen to him, but took 2 steps forward without any nervousness. "Don't be nervous, my friend. What are you doing? Playing house? Stand there and don't move. If you move again, I will shoot." The robber took out a gun and pointed it at Ron in a panic. "Ha ha ha." Ron laughed as if he had heard a ridiculous joke. "Look at the way you hold a gun. Do you really know how to use a gun? Do you think you know how to use a gun if it can fire? Don't come over here." Ron took another step forward, and the robber was forced by Ron's momentum and took a step back involuntarily, looking like Ron was robbing and he was the victim. What a weakling. Ron looked at the robber's ugly gun-holding action with disdain. "I also have a gun on my waist. Do you want to make a bet with me? I bet I will shoot your gun away before you pull the trigger." When the robber heard Ron claiming to have a gun, he immediately pulled the trigger. Die bang. Ah. Caroline and Max screamed nervously and closed their eyes, unable to bear to see Ron's death. But when the gunshot stopped and they opened their eyes again, Ron was still standing there unharmed, while the robber was half kneeling on the ground, covering a hand that was constantly bleeding. Obviously, the extra scream just now was made by him. Ron, however, was so quick that he lifted his shirt, drew his gun, aimed, and fired in a flash before the robber had even said the first word. Now he was casually blowing away the non-existent smoke from the muzzle of his revolver, spinning the gun in the air with his fingers and then putting it back into the holster. The whole action was just like the most classic Western movie. Chapter 92 Arthur's Test. The robber shot down by Ron saw that he had met a tough guy, so he quickly grabbed the bags scattered on the table with his intact right hand. He was about to take a waitress as a hostage, but he slipped. His head hit the table next to him and he fainted. Perfect. Old Earl, who was sitting behind the cashier, couldn't help but applaud. Since Eastwood, I haven't seen such a great gun drawing technique. Old Earl is sure that if you were born in the pioneering era, you could conquer a carriage of women with your gun skills. Clint Eastwood, the protagonist of the movie A Fistful of Dollars, created the most recognized and popular Western cowboy image in the movie. Thank you for the compliment. Ron turned around and took off his hat like a gentleman, then turned back and said, but I think the best tonight should be Miss Caroline. The double kill achievement is not so easy to get, Caroline then exclaimed, picked up a dinner plate to cover her dirty clothes and ran into the dressing room. Caroline felt that her life's face was almost lost in one night. She had never been so embarrassed even when her father was arrested. If you're planning to have sex tonight, I guess it's over, Max whispered in Ron's ear. She won't see you for at least 3 days, so, you're reminding me that there are other options, right? Ron grabbed Max's hips hard while Earl was putting the money back into the ATM. Miraculously, Max didn't push him away. If it were any other time, my answer would definitely be no way. Max was happy and helpless, but today, since you saved my life, I can give you a special treatment. How special? Ron asked shamelessly, but Earl had already finished his work, so Max could only bite Ron's ear lightly. You'll know tonight. Seeing this, the two little Atticus who had just walked into the restaurant shed tears of envy. It's incredible, you actually managed it. I thought you would at least have to shoot at each other across the counter for a while, and then subdue him with fists and feet. I also called the police for you, Rajesh said exaggeratedly. Ron was speechless. Please, reality is not a Hollywood movie. If it takes a long time to clean up such a shabby thing, my work as an agent is really in vain. However, calling the police was indeed a bit troublesome. Ron could only go to another place to eat after dealing with them, but the good news was that he received a date text message from Max while eating. After sending away the article, Ron happily went to the appointment. The next day, when Ron woke up in the big bed of the hotel, Max had already quietly left, leaving only a mess. Perhaps because of the robbery yesterday, Max became extremely excited, which almost made Ron unable to bear it. So, after getting up early, Ron felt a little weak in his steps, and walking on the ground was like stepping on cotton. Just when he was struggling to find a suitable reason to skip work, the mobile phone thrown on the bed rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but Ron still pressed the connect button. Hello. No one spoke on the other end of the phone, but Ron had guessed the identity of the other party. I guess you've already thought about it, right, Arthur? After a long while, Arthur's deep voice came from the other side. You're right. I was fooled by the company, and Harry's son has found out that I killed his father, so I have to kill him. I need help. Sure enough, Ron's last operation successfully made Arthur suspicious, and the IRS logo on the business card he gave him also successfully made Arthur see a glimmer of possibility of whitewashing. If he can't wash his hands of the killer profession and become an ordinary person, then becoming an agent under the IRS is not an unacceptable option. As for doubting Ron's identity, it is completely unnecessary. With such high-precision intelligence, Arthur thought so himself, and a good combat team, except Hank, there is no one who can fight. It must be easy for him to join. You think too much? No problem, provided that you plan to do it, and then what benefits can I get? Speaking of work, Ron is not sleepy anymore, and he now has complete control of the initiative. He took out a bottle of milk from the refrigerator and drank a big sip comfortably. You know I'm from the IRS, so you should understand that I have to collect taxes, and I plan to collect 100% business tax on the assassin industry. What do you think? Of course, if you can join us and help me collect the taxes from your original company, I am willing to forgive all your previous tax evasion and give you a pardon. Arthur must have earned a lot as a killer over the years, and Ron knew this very well. But he also knew that the assassin company must earn more, so his strategy was to catch the big and let the small go. If the income from the assassin company was enough, even if Mr. Xiaomu did not agree to give Arthur tax exemption, it would be enough to deduct a piece from the income to help him pay taxes. And he could also earn a subordinate with good infiltration and assassination skills, which was a huge profit. Ron threw out his young bait, and the fish immediately took the bait. Arthur thought for a moment. I agreed. I know that all the assassination business of the company is accounted for through security income. If you want evidence to prove that they are engaged in assassination business, only the boss has it, in his personal computer. Then how can I get a computer? Kill him, otherwise he will never hand it over, Arthur said firmly. Ron smiled and asked with interest, so, you want me to help you complete your revenge plan? No, it's your plan to eliminate trouble forever. I think you absolutely don't want to face a life where someone will try every means to kill you or your family at any time. From this point of view, our interests are the same. Deal. So where is your original company? Ron was convinced. He believed that the crappy killers found by the assassin company would not pose a threat to him at all, but his family was his weakness. He didn't mind being an accomplice. Anyway, those people deserved it. I don't know either, but I know someone knows. Are you willing to go with me to find that person? We may resort to some means such as torture and intimidation. It is even possible that the other party is just an innocent ordinary person. Arthur, you don't have to test my bottom line little by little. Ron was amused by Arthur's little thoughts. Don't forget, I am an agent. As long as I can achieve my goal, any means can be my choice. Chapter 93. I was here first. Boss, I don't understand why I have to ride in the same car with a killer, Hank complained in dissatisfaction while holding his LG-5 sniper grenade launcher in the back seat of the car heading to the suburbs. Ron and Arthur sat in the front and rear seats of the car respectively. Ron certainly couldn't fail to understand Hank's rejection of Arthur. He had been complaining since he shot to rescue Arthur last time, not because of Ron's order to attack the bodyguard. Which bodyguard of the cult group doesn't have blood on his hands? Hank, who was full of justice, didn't have any psychological burden about this. He just felt that the killer was not a good thing either. If both parties could fight to the death, it would be the best outcome. But he didn't expect that he would actually work with a killer one day. Because he is an excellent infiltrator, he will be our new partner. Ron glanced at the depressed Hank in the rearview mirror and said, of course, if you think you can do a perfect infiltration job like he did last time to assassinate a cult leader, I don't mind killing him now. I used to be able to do it. Hank looked down at his beer belly that was about to squeeze into the car door, and began to miss the days when he was the top sniper of the Navy SEALs. At that time, he drove the coolest car, drank the strongest liquor, and had the most beautiful fun. Well, he was far from being as romantic as his boss, until he returned to normal life after retirement and became fatter and fatter. Of course you can, Hank, but you have to face reality. Ron joked with his subordinates. There's an old saying in China, time is a butcher's knife. You know, turn left. The house with a green swing in the yard is the Finch family. Arthur, who had been acting as a navigator, checked his weapon and suddenly spoke. Finch is the single line of contact between Arthur and the assassin company, also known as the assassin's agent in the industry. That's right, even he, the company's top assassin, doesn't know the specific location of the company, and everything depends on the agent to help him contact. The agent has all the information of both parties and keeps it secret. Ron drove the car to the door and stopped. Hank, you stay in the car and take charge of the alert. Arthur and I will go in together. Ron was worried that Hank would not have the heart to kill the woman and the child, so he decided to leave him in the car. Hank nodded gloomily, and his disgust for Arthur deepened. He had not officially joined the special operations team yet, but Hank had a feeling that he was about to fall out of favor. Before, Ron would definitely take him with him in all violent actions, but now it was Arthur who took over. Damn it. I was here first. Ding dong. Ron signaled Arthur to ring the doorbell. A decent-looking blonde woman opened the door. Arthur quickly took out a gun and pointed it at the woman's head and pushed her into the house. What a man who doesn't show mercy to women. Ron shook his head and followed him into the house, not forgetting to close the door. Good morning, Finch. When Finch heard the noise in the living room and came over with a gun, Ron waved and greeted him with a kind smile on his face, while on the other side, his wife and daughter were squatting on the ground crying as Arthur pointed a gun at them. What are you doing? Finch moved the gun back and forth over Ron and Arthur's heads. Let my family go? Bang. In order to facilitate communication, Ron shot his pistol away. "I'm sorry, I hate it most when people point guns at my head. Hasn't anyone taught you that this is rude?" Ron took a few steps forward, kicked Finch over, and repeatedly crushed his shot hand with his leather shoes. "I don't think I need to introduce Mr. Arthur over there. You should be familiar with him. He is my new subordinate, so I don't need to say much about her purpose. You'd better tell me what I want to know. I just ask, where's Dean?" Ron's kind smile formed a sharp contrast with his current behavior, which gave people a creepy feeling. If it were someone else, he would answer whatever was asked at this moment, but Finch was still stubborn, screaming and shouting, "I don't know." Arthur was about to take action, but Ron shook his head to stop him. "Well, it seems that Mr. Finch still doesn't have a clear understanding of his current situation." Ron picked up the pistol that Finch dropped on the ground, paced to the family controlled by Arthur, picked up Finch's daughter, walked to the meat grinder next to the kitchen, and turned on the switch. The high-power machine immediately made a powerful boom sound, and Finch immediately had a bad premonition. "Let her go? What are you going to do to her?" Ron was unmoved and stuffed his daughter's hand near the entrance of the meat grinder, grinning like a villain in the movie. "I plan to start with the fingers, and put her whole arm in little by little. The specific speed depends on how fast you answer the questions. If you are quick, maybe she can still keep a small piece of bone. Or you can buy a Chinese novel, The Return of the Condor Heroes, to teach her how to reach the pinnacle of life with one hand." As he said, Ron pressed his hand down quickly without warning. Damn! The machine started with a huge roar, and a large piece of flesh and blood that was minced into foam spurted out of the meat grinder mouth amid the girl's screams, splashing all over the girl. Finch's eyes were red with anger, and he quickly shouted, "Let her go!" Ron was unmoved and pushed the girl's hand down again. Half of the girl's body was covered with meat, and she screamed wildly in fear. 300 Colby Square. "I swear he's there. Please let her go." Mr. Finch fell to his knees and sobbed. Ron and Arthur looked at each other and nodded slightly. It seemed that what he said was true. Ron turned off the meat grinder with satisfaction and let go of the girl's hand. The girl rushed to her mother crying. Miraculously, her hand was fine. Ron showed a smile of success, raised a piece of raw beef that he had secretly hidden in his hand when no one was paying attention, and proudly shook it at Mr. Finch, who was kneeling on the ground. "Sorry, it seems I accidentally ruined your steak." Ron said sorry, but there was no regretful expression on his face. "But if you are willing to try Chinese food, you can try the beef and scallion dumplings. I swear on my luck and love, it must taste great." The mother hugged her daughter and burst into tears. "Oh my God. You are a bastard." Ron was unmoved, but continued to stare at Finch, who was relieved. "It's too early to relax now. I think you should be able to guess what I'm going to do next. So I suggest that you buy the next flight ticket right now and take your family on a trip. When you come back, it's best to change your place of residence and even change your name. I can guarantee to completely eradicate Dean's company, but a killer agent who leaks information will definitely attract pursuit from other companies." Chapter 94. What is art? "I thought you were really going to throw the girl's hand into the meat grinder just now." Arthur looked at Ron with admiration, which made his scalp tingle. "This guy, is he a gay?" "I just used the method you would normally use." "How is that possible?" Ron curled his lips. "Things like forced confession are originally a combination of lies and intimidation. As long as the person is intimidated, we can even ask him how old he was when he started peeping at his neighbors taking a bath. This is common sense in our IRS. I just didn't expect the meat grinder to be so effective." Hank in the back seat didn't understand what they were saying at all. If he also had his soul from China, he would definitely want to sing "I should be under the car, not in the car." Number 300 Colby Plaza is a very tall office building. Ron parked his car in the parking lot of the building opposite, and Arthur made his suggestion first. "I'll call him first and connect the line to the signal tower of this building to locate him. How about we go in together after we find his office?" "Not very good, too troublesome." Ron shook his head and opened the trunk. "Hank, take these 2 boxes to the top of the building and open them, then stay on the roof and wait. As for you and me, go over there and take the elevator, and we will storm up." "You must be crazy. Do you know how many people Dean has? We can only have a chance of success if we make a careful plan, ambush him on the way he transfers, and use large vehicles to separate the team before the ambush. It would be best if..." Arthur chattered about his plan. This was the most Ron had ever seen him talk since he met him. Under normal circumstances, Arthur always looked aloof. But after hearing Ron's unreliable plan, he finally couldn't pretend anymore. Ron put his finger to his lips and made a silent gesture. Calm down, don't forget, helping you to get revenge is just a casual decision of mine, and my real job is to get his deposit account and transaction records. Don't make a mistake, my dear Agent Arthur. Do I need to remind you that he has at least 50 skilled killers as bodyguards? Arthur's attitude was still tough, and he was not ready to give in. Of course not. Ron held the phone in front of Arthur. In fact, I know better than you. He is now in the E-office on the 23rd floor, including the lounge and other offices they're rented. There are a total of 54 bodyguards, and they are equipped with a large number of P-90 submachine guns that were first mass-produced in 1991 as weapons. Am I right? I have to say that the firepower of this thing is really fierce, but the design of the first batch still has some minor defects, so it occasionally jams. The surveillance screen in the building was clearly projected on Ron's mobile phone screen, and as Ron's fingers fiddled, the position kept switching, and almost all of Dean's men were seen at a glance. Arthur opened his mouth in surprise. How did you do it? If you mean the surveillance footage, I have a girlfriend who is very skilled and just hacked into the building's surveillance system. Ron was extremely proud. If you mean the mass-produced batches of their weapons, I can only say that I have a very powerful arms dealer friend, and all their arms are bought from my friend. Arthur was finally completely convinced by his new boss who had a lot of power. Okay, everything is up to you. 10 minutes later, Ron used his authority to issue an evacuation order to the property company of the building. Except for the floor where the assassin company was located, everyone else was evacuated. Hank dragged the heavy box and finally climbed to the top floor. According to Ron's order, she opened the box, and there were some strange children's toys inside. Boss, did you take the wrong box? The things in this box look like the remote-controlled helicopters I gave to my nephew for Christmas, but they have 4 wings and look like monsters with many heads. Hank took out all the things in the box, and in front of her were 7 drones, 1 large and 6 small. I'm very sure I didn't bring the wrong thing. Don't underestimate this thing. In the future, it will be a new weapon that will change the battlefield situation. Ron and Arthur took the elevator to the 24th floor and turned into the safety staircase. They immediately used their mobile phones to notify the property company to close all elevators. From your position, what's the view from here? Can you see Dean's office? Of course. Do you need me to kill him with one shot? Hank said excitedly after setting up the sniper grenade launcher. He had never used this thing in actual combat. No, I just remind you not to shoot in that direction. I need a living Dean to tell me where he hides the money. This damn guy, the total deposit in all his bank accounts is less than $50,000. He must have hidden the money somewhere else. As you wish, my boss. Hank stuck out his tongue and turned the muzzle of the gun to aim at another room next to it. Can I start? Start. As Ron's order was transmitted to Hank's headset through the signal, Hank gently pressed his fingers. Bang! A 40mm diameter grenade was fired out of the gun barrel, penetrated the glass of the building, and entered the bodyguard's duty room. Bang! The high explosive grenade exploded in the duty room, and a burst of fire appeared on the monitoring screen on Ron's mobile phone. When the smoke cleared, there was no living person in the room. Hank, who was on the opposite building, was stimulated by the powerful destructive power of the weapon in his hand, and his adrenaline surged. He was so happy. The boss was right, this thing was so cool. Who is it? Dean was so scared that he crawled under his desk and yelled to the outside, is that bastard Arthur coming? Come on, kill him. Before he finished speaking, Hank's second grenade came unexpectedly, through the glass of another office and hit the wall heavily. Bang! This time even the wall collapsed. Dean's mobile phone vibrated, and the text message from Arthur was a classic line of the governor, I'm back. This pretentious guy. Ron gave full marks. Dean, who was hit by 2 grenades, immediately realized that something was wrong and shouted to the bodyguards outside, it's Arthur, he's in the building, get me out of here. Before his bodyguards could recover from the blow, the propellers of the 6 small drones originally placed on the rooftop behind Hank started to spin at the same time, and flew into the sky with a heavy fuselage. As Hank was stunned, the drones quickly crossed the 300-meter distance between the 2 buildings, flew in a column through the broken windows, passed through the office that had been bombed into ruins, and flew into the corridor. The killers who had never seen such a new thing even forgot to shoot at them. Ron's voice rang out from the speakers on the drones, Scum, do you know what art is? Chapter 95 Attack. What are you bastards looking at? Why don't you shoot those flies down? Dean's roar came from the office inside. The bodyguards woke up and pulled out their guns to shoot down the flying things in the sky. Unfortunately, it was too late. "Let me tell you, scumbag," Ron's magnetic voice sounded again. "Artis," Ron pressed the blasting button. Bang! The fire from the 6 small drones quickly spread to the entire corridor, and the huge explosion almost deafened Arthur's ears. "Ha!" Ron patted Arthur's shoulder happily. "See, your tactics are weak. This is the most efficient way to infiltrate. Have you learned nothing? If everyone is dead, I guarantee that no one will question your infiltration failure. Is it because dead people can talk? What a stupid idea." Arthur, who has been engaged in lurking and assassination for a lifetime, felt that this was simply weak and not artistic at all. He tried to re-emphasize his importance. What if the other side has more people? For example, the other side occupies a large warehouse, which is full of people, and all the entrances are guarded by crossfire composed of at least 5 submachine guns. Just as Arthur was about to continue to explain his superb infiltration skills, he didn't expect Ron to immediately give a solution. "In that case, I think we can consider long-range firepower coverage. I have a 107 rocket launcher with 12 barrels. If necessary, I can buy 2 more and concentrate on bombing the warehouse and bury them all in the ruins." Ron said that he had never lost in an argument, and Arthur was speechless. "This seems to work. Watch the emergency exit. I think I heard footsteps. You stay here while I go upstairs." Ron patted the guy on the tripod in front of Arthur and jumped out from behind the bunker. "Don't let down the gift I prepared for you. I believe you will love using it." On the stairs of the emergency exit, a simple bunker made of various things by 2 people was supported by a tripod. The steel beast pointed its gun towards the exit. It was the famous M249 squad machine gun. The empty gun weighed less than 10 kilograms, and was not as heavy as the trapezoidal ammunition box with 200 rounds of 5.56 machine gun bullets. Ron believed that no one could pass through the firepower network formed by it. On the other side, the corridor bombed by 6 drones gathered Dean's bodyguards again. Most of them had just stayed in their respective offices, so they escaped. Anyway, Ron himself did not expect to be able to achieve a one-time solution with drones. FXXK, a tall black bodyguard pressed all the elevator buttons and shouted, "All the elevators are out of service. What should we do now?" "It must be Arthur's doing. There's an emergency passage. Let's go over there." Dean took 2 steps and stopped again when he remembered Arthur's usual rigor. "Wait, that guy must be waiting in the stairs. Jim, take your team to kill that bastard for me." "Yes, boss." The messy footsteps in the corridor were getting closer and closer, but they stopped again when they were about to reach the door. A peephole made of glass fragments stretched out from the corridor. "It seems that they are still a group of rats with some IQ." Ron took out 2 grenades at the same time, pulled out the safety, and threw them towards the wall opposite the corridor without waiting for the bodyguards in the corridor to make further moves. The grenade bounced off the wall and fell into the bodyguard team on the other side close to the entrance. Bang! Bang! 2 explosions sounded, one after the other. After the first explosion, a huge flame lit up. The grenade fragments and embedded steel balls fanned out towards the bodyguards, instantly turning them into sieves. The other grenade that exploded a little later shone with a dazzling white light, mixed with a huge amount of noise, which temporarily blinded the remaining bodyguards. At the same time, many people were lying on the ground and vomiting because they were too close to the noise. Arthur didn't wait for Ron's order, and immediately picked up the machine gun and rushed to the exit. Arthur's gun spewed out deadly flames and made a noise like a chainsaw. In the narrow space, he almost didn't need to aim, and immediately turned the corridor into hell of blood and broken limbs. In 12 seconds, the 200-round ammunition belt in the ammunition box was used up, and the machine gun made a crisping sound. Arthur immediately dropped the machine gun in his hand and rolled back into the corridor. At the moment he withdrew, numerous gun muzzles appeared at the same time behind the corners of the corridor where he could hide. The dense bullets immediately left a dense honeycomb-like bullet hole in the place where Arthur had just been. It was the bodyguard's P90. The magazine of this thing can hold 50 rounds of bullets. The alternating firing was enough to suppress them and then cover each other to break through Ron's blockade. "Is this the good plan you said? I have lost a machine gun. What should we do now?" Arthur complained angrily to Ron, who was whistling and carrying the box down the stairs. Ron calmly took out another gas bomb and threw it into the corridor. The bodyguards, who were confused about the situation, retreated back to their temporary shelter again. "Want to play a racing game?" Ron opened the box, took out 2 remote control racing cars and put them on the ground, and took out 2 remote controllers with built-in screens. The pictures on the screen came from the cameras on the racing cars. He handed one of them to Arthur with a devilish smile. Each car has a 1-kilogram bomb with 50 small steel balls inside. Press the red button to detonate it. Do you want to try it? Yes, Arthur happily took the remote control. The bodyguards in the corridor were hit hard twice by Ron. There were less than 20 people who were still able to fight. They all nervously pointed their guns at the smoke, ready to kill any living creature that came out of the smoke. However, what came out of the smoke was not Arthur's footsteps, but the buzzing sound of the racing car motor, like the footsteps of the devil, coming from far away and accompanied by various collision sounds in the middle. Immediately, 2 racing cars, one black and one white, rushed out of the smoke. What the hell? Kill those 2 things. The bodyguards who had suffered a loss from the drone once no longer dared to despise anything, and quickly turned their guns to shoot at the 2 cars. However, they only had time to destroy 1 car, and the other car successfully dodged the bullet with a coquettish move and drilled behind the bunker where the bodyguards were hiding. Bang! Ron pressed the red detonation button, and the bodyguards behind the door were blown into a pool of meat. Before the remaining bodyguards could mourn for their companions for a second, Ron and Arthur, wearing gas masks, walked out of the smoke. The bolt of Ron's revolver was already open, ready to fire at any time. It's noon. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96 Ending and the Time Machine. Bang! Ron fired 6 shots in a row, but because the firing rate was too fast, it sounded like only 1 shot. The 6 bodyguards who had their heads exposed each had a bloody hole on their heads and fell to the ground. There were still 2 bullets left in his revolver. Ron glanced at Arthur who was staring at the gun in his hand. Smith & Wesson M327, uses 0.357-inch magnum bullets, and has a magazine capacity of 8 rounds. Some time ago, someone said that my gun had too few bullets, so I bought a new one. If you like it, I can give you one. No, I just don't understand why some people still use revolvers as their main weapons at this time. I still prefer my P226 pistol. Arthur shook his head. Maybe you should find time to change to a more modern automatic pistol, so that you can better use your shooting skills. After all, the airtightness of the revolver, yow. Now this time it was Ron's turn to shake his head. Change to an automatic pistol. Who gave me the skills? Without the skill bonus, Ron would not change. Although the attribute of the skill improvement is so small, it doesn't look obvious. But Ron knew that without the attribute bonus of the shooting speed, the moves he imitated from the game would be useless. You are still young and don't understand, Ron said maturely. Convenience is only temporary, but being cool is a lifelong thing. Arthur was speechless. With all the deadheads on the ground, who are you going to show off to? There are 54 bodies in total. Arthur counted them, which means Dean is the only one left. Here, Ron caught Dean like a little chicken, ignoring his begging for mercy, and threw him in front of Arthur. I'll give you 20 minutes. I want to know where all his money is hidden. Let me see your methods. I don't want to do it myself every time I interrogate him. Please, let me go. I have a lot of money, more than you can imagine. I can give you as much as you want. Dean knelt on the ground and begged. You can say that he is a successful businessman, but he is definitely not a determined person. 10 minutes is enough, Arthur was confident. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, a gunshot was heard in the office. Arthur came out alone and handed Ron a piece of paper with a remote place name on it. This guy changed all his money into gold and hid it in this place. No one is guarding it. It's an old house in his hometown. Can you imagine? This guy actually hid all the gold in his father's coffin. It's worth about 80 million US dollars in total, and this is not counting the recent surge in gold prices. Well done, Ron praised generously. The rest of the money withdrawal work will be left to you and Hank. I hope you can bring me good news. As for me, I'm going to call it a day. After a fierce battle for the whole morning, Ron was a little tired. He planned to eat something and go home to sleep. He simply left the money collection work to Hank and Arthur. As for the 2 of them running away with the money, Ron was not worried at all. Not to mention that Hank himself was an honest man, And he loved his wife very much? He would never give up his stable job and take his wife into a hunt. Even Arthur has always wanted to quit, but due to the special nature of the killer circle, he has never found a suitable opportunity. Now, Ron not only gave him this opportunity, but also helped him to clean up his identity. Arthur must be mentally ill to run away with all this money and the IRS wanted order. Not to mention that two people acting together can also play a role in mutual supervision. Ron is not worried at all. At this moment, his most urgent need is to get a good night's sleep. Even if he doesn't eat, he has to get a good night's sleep. God knows how sleepy Ron is. He is a man who has been fighting from last night to noon today, but last night's opponent was Max, and today's opponent is a group of killers who deserve to go to hell. Even a perpetual motion machine has to stop and rest occasionally, right? But when he returned home, he encountered a little trouble. The stairs of the apartment were blocked by a gorgeous Victorian-style big guy, and the instigator was his dear brother. "Come on, brothers, push hard," Sheldon shouted from above, while Howard and Rajesh pushed below. Howard complained, "If I push harder, my colon will come out." "Hey, guys," Ron said helplessly, and the two weak Otacus above reflexively let go of the big guy and waved to him. "Hey Ron." The big guy slid down the stairs, and the unruly Indian immediately dodged to the side, almost hitting Howard, but luckily Ron held him up. "Thank you, brother." Howard covered his chest with lingering fear. Ron slowly put the big guy down on the stairs. "What the hell are you doing? Did you steal the school's equipment and turn your home into a laboratory? If so, I will move out immediately to avoid being blown up by your damn experiments one day, just like that elevator. Do you know how unpleasant it is to climb stairs every day? If my mother didn't ask me to look after Sheldon, I wouldn't live here. I'm an adult, I don't need your care," Sheldon retorted. Ron grinned. "Oh? You mean adults in their 20s who still read comic books every day? I saw that you even use Skywalker brand shampoo, which is only used by children under 12 years old. That's conditioner." "This is a time machine," Leonard hurriedly explained guiltily. He couldn't help but feel guilty. Although Sheldon seemed to be the most troublesome one in their group, the elevator explosion was his masterpiece. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Ron lifted his chin and looked at it carefully. "I didn't know this thing had been successfully developed. Can it send me back to give my 10-year-old self a sports yearbook? I'll bet on that, and then use all the money I earn to buy Google, Apple, and Facebook stocks. Now I can drive a yacht and take 100 big-breasted, long-legged babes to go fishing on the sea." "Ron, you are talking about Back to the Future." Sheldon became serious again when it came to knowledge related to science fiction movies. "The time machine in it is a modified DeLorean DMC-12 sports car. And this time machine is the time machine in the movie The Time Machine, blah blah blah." Ron imitated Sheldon's tone of voice. "So, can it really let me travel through time and space?" "Of course not. This is just a prop model in the movie." From a scientific point of view, hearing that Sheldon was going to do an online science book again, Ron interrupted quickly. "If not, then forget it. I'm not interested in listening to you talk about science knowledge for an hour on the stairs, so can you take away your time machine now and let me go home and have a good sleep?" Chapter 97, Trouble at Work. "Yeah, I thought so too. Can you move this time machine out of the way? I'm going to be late for work." Leonard turned around and saw his sweetheart, Penny. She immediately leaned against the wall in an extremely coquettish manner and waved to Penny. "Hi Penny." Not to mention now, even at normal times Penny was not in the mood to flirt with Leonard. "This is a time machine, right? Forget it, no matter what it is. Can you hurry up? I'm in a hurry to get to work. Give me a few more minutes, I'll get it done right away." "The problem is that I don't have a few minutes." Penny looked at her watch anxiously and said, "I'm already late. I have a simple idea." Sheldon began to use his clever brain. "You can go to the roof and jump to the roof of another building. The distance between them is not far. If you are afraid of heights, just don't look down." "Are you sure you are not kidding me?" If it weren't for Sheldon's doctoral title, Penny would have wanted to call the mental hospital and send Sheldon in. Sheldon said seriously, "I never joke about things related to fear of heights." Damn it. Penny saw that the time was getting closer and closer, so she could only muster up the courage to try. "Okay, I'll go to the roof and take a look." Ron glared at Leonard with his eyes. "What a good opportunity to show off in front of the goddess. Why don't you hurry up?" Leonard immediately responded with a grateful look. "What a good brother. He said he would help me pick up Penny, and if there is any job in the future, I will definitely work for him for free." Leonard rubbed his little hands that were hurt from moving things just now. Hey, if you can wait until I get a time machine already, I can use it to send you back to this time point again. Penny, who was delayed from work by 4 Atticus, glared at Leonard fiercely, and her eyes seemed to say, "Do you think you are humorous? Time travel, just a joke, don't mind it." Penny and Ron shook their heads at the same time. Atticus picking up girls are really hopeless, but for the sake of his free work, Ron planned to help Leonard save it again. Wait a minute, Ron called Penny, who was about to try the rooftop, retreated to the bottom of the stairs, and then suddenly sprinted upwards, jumping up 7 steps and 2 or 3 steps to the time machine. "Be careful," Sheldon shouted. "We spent $800 to buy this," but before he finished speaking, Ron put his hands on the time machine, and his whole body stepped diagonally on the wall next to him, and his whole body was 90 degrees vertical to the wall, running on the wall as if walking on flat ground. The 4 Atticus were stunned, and they didn't even notice that their saliva flowed out of their mouths uncontrollably and dripped onto the ground. They had only seen this kind of action in the superhero comics that they regarded as treasures. This was the first time they had seen it in real life. No wonder they were so surprised. Ron incredibly ran 2 steps on the wall and then stepped heavily on the wall. With a reaction force, he twisted in the air and landed steadily on the top step of the stairs. Seeing Penny's eyes full of love, Ron had every reason to believe that if he invited Penny to mate at this moment, Penny would definitely ignore the trivial matters at work and do everything she could to keep Ron. But Ron was not interested in this now, he just wanted to have a good sleep. "It's just a toy worth $800 US. Ron walked past the angry Sheldon with disdain. As a rich man who had just received $80 million US in taxes, Ron had enough confidence not to take Sheldon's little money seriously. Ron tore open the seal of the elevator. "I think taking the elevator would be a faster option," Leonard kept explaining. "Wait, the elevator has been broken for a long time and no one has repaired it. If you mean sliding down the elevator shaft, I think we need some professional tools. This door is too strong." While talking, Ron put his finger into the gap of the elevator door, grabbed it hard, and directly pulled the door open with brute force. He turned around and said, "What did you just say we need?" "I was thinking about something and didn't hear clearly." "No, nothing." Leonard, who had just taken a step forward, shrank back again. "What should we do after we go down? Do you think Penny will have the brute force like you to open the elevator door?" Sheldon continued to question. "She can use a crowbar?" Ron took out a crowbar from behind his apartment door and stuffed it into Penny's hand, saying sarcastically, "The biggest difference between humans and animals is that humans can use tools." "Didn't expect that." Monkey Ron, who had been mocked by Sheldon for his IQ for many years, finally vented his anger today and felt refreshed immediately. "If you can't do it, I can teach you from drilling wood to make fire. Maybe in a few years you can evolve to the point where you can break large stones and make stone tools." This was the first time Sheldon was so harshly criticized, and he glared at Ron, but Ron took it all as a reward. "Hold on firmly." Before Penny's hand on him could do anything more mischievous, Ron made a simple knot with a rope and hung Penny on the elevator cable and gently pushed her. Penny slid down with a cry of excitement or fear. "Look, it's just such a simple thing, but you guys made it so complicated." Ron spread his hands to the 4 scientists who were still watching. "Sometimes I can't even figure out who is smarter among us." As the only member of the 4 who could still be safe and sound after confronting Ron, Sheldon was still immersed in Ron's insult just now, and was using his IQ of more than 140 to think of words to fight back. Leonard, who has the highest emotional intelligence, rolled his eyes and suddenly had an idea in his mind. "Hey, Ron, my brother, do you want to help me move this time machine up? We can let you play with it." "Not interested." Ron shook his head and showed a mischievous smile. "Compared to that, don't I think it's more interesting to watch you guys compete with this big guy? To be honest, have you ever thought of finding a homeless person downstairs to help you move it up?" The 4 scientists were dumbfounded. Why didn't I think of it? Then they fell into deep self-doubt about their IQ. "Trust me, for just $10, someone will be eager to help you." Ron was contentedly admiring the confused expressions on their faces, feeling more satisfied than using a large caliber pistol to cut someone's head off. After all, cutting someone's head off is his job, and he can do it any time. But watching Sheldon get humiliated, I don't know how long I have to wait before I can see him again. There are a lot of homeless people like I mentioned in the next block. I heard that those shameless guys have no bottom line. If you are willing to pay an extra $50 in tips, you can even play with their assholes at will. You can go and try. Ron took advantage of the victory and added that he pushed the door back to his apartment. Chapter 98: The Second Orange Weapon and the Dance. Ron had a full sleep in the true sense. I mean, he slept from noon on the first day to the morning of the second day, and then he casually ate a cheesecake that Penny brought back from the cheese factory that was about to expire in the refrigerator, and then fell into deep sleep again, and he didn't wake up until the afternoon. When he woke up with full status, the system that had been inactive for a long time finally delivered him a pleasant news as expected. Congratulations to the host for gaining the recognition of the plot character Arthur. The host has received Arthur's gift, perfect infiltration. Using heavy firepower to kill all the people in the target area is indeed a good idea, but the killer's main job cannot be lost master-level infiltration skills. You deserve it. Ron's heart sank when he saw the first half of the explanation, and he was completely relieved until the end. Fortunately, it was a serious skill. If it was the nonsense he made up for Arthur. Heavy firepower coverage is something that needs to be taught by the system. It was the same feeling as before. At first, it had no effect on the body, but when the skills began to be transmitted, the head would feel dizzy, and then become particularly sleepy until all the skills were transmitted to the body. According to Ron's understanding, this should be an adverse reaction caused by the brain receiving excessive information, just like the fingers getting hot after playing games for a long time. Ron closed his eyes, and there was indeed a lot of knowledge in his mind that he had never had before. Now he could even confidently go downstairs to buy a pack of instant noodles and then open all the doors of the entire apartment building. Not only that, Ron also found that the M1911 pistol that Arthur gave him yesterday was emitting a dazzling orange light in the holster. Just like last time, when old Jack gave the gun to Ron, there was no light, and when old Jack really recognized Ron's gun, his Smith & Wesson pistol began to light up orange. If we use the words of domestic garbage web games, this is the light of an epic weapon. Ron has only one orange weapon so far, which is surprisingly useful. Is he going to get a second one now? I don't know what the attributes of this one will be. Ron walked to the weapon with excitement, took it out, held it carefully in his hands like a pilgrim, and checked its properties with the system. However, the characteristics of this weapon really blinded his eyes. The Suicide M1911 pistol, Rock Island Arsenal Collector's Edition, from the naval officer in the Korean battlefield to the legendary killer Old Harry, every owner of it has used it to commit suicide. This gun has a magical power that can make people die peacefully. Ron was afraid that he had read it wrong, so he read the description again. As expected, this epic weapon has no use except for making people die peacefully. Damn it. What use do I have for you? Die peacefully? Isn't it a special treatment for the enemy? Can I still use this thing to commit suicide? Ron felt that the characteristics of this weapon were simply ridiculous. He probably would never use this broken thing, but fortunately it was a gift from his subordinates. Ron did not throw it away, but just put it in the corner of his system space. Ron always relied on it to pull out his gun unexpectedly quickly. Unfortunately, it was only a small .333, a total of 27 cubic meters, and could not fit a tank, so it could only be his light weapons arsenal. This guy, is it better than the P90 he picked up from the assassin company yesterday? That weapon is purple, and its characteristics are just a simple sentence, but it is extremely useful. P90 was born from the production line under extremely accidental conditions. Characteristics: no recoil at all. This entry alone is enough to surpass everything. If this entry can be installed on Ron's revolver, it will be even better. Ron's hungry stomach sounded an alarm, pulling him back to reality from the system. He was hungry. But when Ron habitually walked to the poor restaurant in the poor neighborhood, Williamsburg Restaurant, the door was tightly closed, and a sign of suspending business was posted on the door. Not far away, in an old-fashioned extended Lincoln sedan that had been discontinued in 2002, 4 figures, 1 man and 3 women, were eating small cakes. Of course, the largest one was a Polish woman in an evening gown. Her huge body, which was fully supported by her low-cut dress, looked like a huge mountain of flesh. Ron immediately recognized that she was someone from Max's store. Hyrule, who was most familiar with Ron, was the first to say hello. If you are here to play the role of the Prince Charming who saves people from suffering, you are too late. We already have a fairy godmother. Sophie. The Polish woman twisted her hips and rubbed against Ron in a very coquettish manner. The fairy godmother is me. The little crown on your head really matches your outfit today. Ron complimented against his will, and at the same time quietly distanced himself a little. "Can anyone tell me why you are dressed so grandly today? Are you celebrating Independence Day? If I remember correctly, it should be next Wednesday." Lee Han came over and shook hands with Ron very enthusiastically. "No, it's Max and Caroline. They are going to dance today. We were planning to go together, but Oleg's car broke down." Oleg spread his hands. "Sophie, I said my cousin would come with tools to fix the car within half an hour. You said this an hour ago, and now the two little sweet girls have been gone for 20 minutes. Sophie continued to complain. Ron was able to sort out his thoughts a little from their conversation. Max and Caroline wanted to go to a dance party and pretend to meet a powerful magazine editor by chance, so that she could taste their cakes and give them a space to promote them. Unfortunately, the luxury car that Oleg had bought many times broke down just after it started. In Sophie's words, "He is indeed a man who is not good at anything but always fails. Can I know which hotel they are going to? Maybe I can help." If she doesn't have an invitation, it should be difficult to get in. The London West Hollywood Hotel in Beverly Hills. Sophie took a step forward and continued to take advantage of Ron, which made Oleg furious. However, he had just been scolded and didn't dare to speak. He could only look at Ron with envy. But Ron was not happy at all. Although he also liked plump girls, Max's type was just right, not how to say it. If Max was described as a muscle sports car, then Sophie was a heavy tank, and it was one of those bloated models that broke down at any time during World War II. Ron felt that it was not appropriate to stay here for long. "Thank you." Ron took the small cake handed to him by Sophie and stuffed it into his mouth, swallowing it without chewing, and his hunger was immediately reduced. "Nice to meet you, Miss Sophie, but I think my princess needs help. Goodbye." After that, Ron got back into his car and drove away, leaving Sophie still standing there, staring at Ron's car infatuatedly. "That's so cool. I wish I could have sex with a man like this. I really don't know which of the two sweet girls he is talking about is the princess. They are so lucky." Maybe both, Earl complained in her low voice. Chapter 99 Prince Charming. The most famous thing about the London West Hollywood Hotel in Beverly Hills, located between Hollywood and Beverly Hills, is its luxuriously decorated ballroom. In order to make the party look more impressive, the organizers even persuaded the local police department to send out mounted police to escort the party. They were real mounted police riding on tall horses, although they did not run as fast as the mounted police on motorcycles. Therefore, Max and Caroline, who were riding horses to the party, were stopped by two black mounted police. "Hey, girls, this street is closed to traffic. Although it's called a road, horses are not allowed on the road. Please show your driver's license. If you take drugs before getting high, remember to put it on you." Caroline did not get off the horse. She leaned over and said to the two police officers with one hand covering her barren chest, which was not worth looking at, "Hello, officers. We are on our way to the dance. We would like to ask if you can help us watch the horses." Max quickly added, "You don't have to waste time doing alcohol concentration tests for us. We are not drunk, and we are not playing the treasure hunt game at the bachelorette party. Our car broke down in the South District, and we rode all the way here from Hollywood Boulevard." The tall police officer exclaimed, "So you rode a horse from Hollywood Boulevard? That's so cool." The short police officer looked at the tall police officer and then at the sisters, curled his lips and reminded, "Yes, it's also illegal, please." Two handsome police officers. Caroline clasped her hands together and prayed. Perhaps relying on his height advantage, the tall officer agreed, "No problem, we can help." The short officer glared and raised his eyebrows. "Impossible, Dave, we are on duty." Caroline looked at the policeman and spread her hands helplessly. "Officer, we are late. Excuse me, we really don't have time to play the game of good cop, bad cop." Max continued to insist, pointing at the two of them exaggeratedly. "But you two are handsome policemen and super handsome policemen." The tall officer lowered his eyes and licked his lips. The short officer looked at the tall officer meaningfully and smiled crookedly, then turned his head to the sisters and said, "No problem, we can help. Let's help you two down first." The tall officer stared at the ravine on Max's chest, slapped the short officer's hand away with his palm, and shouted, "I'll help the girl in the low-cut dress." Although they heard it, Max and Caroline still pretended not to hear it. They got off the horse together with the arms of the two policemen, lifted the hems of their skirts and ran, turning their heads to look back. "Thank you, handsome officer and super handsome officer." The tall police officer looked at the sisters' backs and said narcissistically, Do you know that the super handsome police officer is talking about me? The short police officer glanced at him, pointed at his chest and said, "Come on, have you seen how handsome I am wearing sunglasses? I am much more handsome than you." And behind them, a tall figure appeared at some point. Sorry, whether it is a handsome police officer or a super handsome police officer, they are all talking about me. Ron casually threw his ID into the arms of the short police officer. After flipping through it, he immediately stood up and saluted Ron seriously. "Hello, sir." As he said that, the short man secretly poked his companion who was stunned next to him and whispered, "IRS. This name is indeed more useful than anything else." The tall man quickly stood at attention and saluted. Ron did not need to pull his collar down like Max, and he was treated better than them. Ron took his ID and put the key in his hand. "Can you please help me check the car? It's in front of the road where you blocked it." "Here are the keys." "Yes, sir." The short man took the key nervously. Because he was driving, he couldn't go wherever he wanted like Max and the others. Ron was blocked by the damn one-way street and turned a corner. He simply left the car at the intersection where the road was closed due to construction and ran over. So he arrived a little later than Max and the others, but looking at the backs of the two silly girls, it seemed that he was not too late. Ron straightened his neat suit and walked towards the ballroom leisurely. "Ballroom entrance, Max. I'm surprised that you can move freely in a long skirt," Caroline praised sincerely. Max replied, "I wore a maid outfit when I worked in a medieval restaurant. I didn't have to carry plates full of turkey legs and beer, which made me feel as light as a swallow." Caroline looked at the sign-in desk and hid behind Max in embarrassment. "Sign in there, you go in front and I hide behind you because I am the most hated woman in Los Angeles." To be honest, given Caroline's current situation, just getting here has used up all her courage. In the city of Los Angeles, there is probably no one more notorious than the Channing family. Max turned his head and looked at Caroline. "So I'm here to be your human shield." Caroline looked at Max's chest and gestured with her hand in the air to measure the size of Max's chest. "You have more stuff up there and can withstand everything." Max was speechless. Caroline suddenly squatted down with a panicked look on her face and put her hand on Max's waist. Max was so scared that he raised his hands, turned his head in surprise and looked at Caroline who was squatting behind him, and said helplessly, "Did someone pull out a gun?" I knew something was going to happen. Caroline squatted on the ground and looked in front of Max. "No, I saw the couple who put my dad in jail." Fortunately, the couple did not notice Caroline's existence and quickly passed the security check and entered the venue. Caroline breathed a sigh of relief, and the line quickly came to Caroline's side. The red-haired fat girl behind the sign-in desk looked at them. "Can you tell me your name?" "Caroline." "Caroline Channing." When talking about the last name, the voice was lowered so low that it was almost inaudible. The fat girl raised her eyebrows and squinted at Caroline, tilting her ears. "Sorry, I didn't hear it. Can you tell me your name again?" "Caroline Channing." Whispering, the fat girl raised her eyebrows and squinted at Caroline, tilting her ears. "Sorry, I still didn't hear it." If she really didn't hear it the first and second times, the third time was obviously intentional, because Caroline's voice was much louder than the previous two times. The surname that was famous throughout the city had already made several people around her look angry, which made Caroline feel like sitting on pins and needles. She swore that except for the time when her father was arrested and the time when she was kicked out of her villa, this time was the most embarrassing. And this time, she hoped that like last time, a Prince Charming would come down from the sky to save her. Caroline could only lean over again in humiliation and raise her head and raise her voice. "Caroline Channing." Whispering, the fat girl had already begun to be impatient, and she didn't know how much of her impatience was pretended. She raised her head and asked loudly again, "What are you doing? Tell me your name quickly." At the door, almost everyone's attention was attracted. Chapter 100 Crow on a Plane. The fat girl looked at Caroline with her side face, and her fat body shook violently as she raised her upper body to speak. She pretended to be surprised and said, "Did you just say Channing? Caroline Channing? Wait, are you that Caroline Channing?" At this time, everyone around looked over, and at the same time showed meaningful expressions on their faces. Caroline bent her chest even lower, and explained in a low voice like she was trying to cover her ears and steal a bell. "Yes, I personally called the organizer to ask, and my name must be on it." She was about to cry. The fat girl looked down at the list, and her fingers followed the names one by one, and she read loudly, "Channing. Channing. Channing. No, I don't see the name of Caroline Channing." Caroline was speechless and embarrassed. SHH may be under my name, Max Blake, we're together." Mike glared at the fat girl who was deliberately looking for trouble, and pointed at Caroline with his finger. The fat girl still did her own thing and read Caroline's last name louder. Caroline was ashamed. It would be nice if there was a Prince Charming, but you know how it is possible? Reality is not a fairy tale. She knew this when she was driven out of her castle. At this moment, a clear voice rang out from the door. "Shut up. If you dare to shout Caroline Channing again, I will pull your trachea out of your throat and strangle you to death, and then tie a bow on it." Caroline turned around and shouted in surprise, "Ron!" Then she threw herself into Ron's arms. She had suffered too much injustice this evening, and now, her Prince Charming finally appeared. Max added arrogantly, "It's 100 times more violent than it sounds. Be good, it's okay, I'm here." Ron patted Caroline's back gently, staring sharply at the assistant of the party planner who was always picking on the fat girl. "If I remember correctly, the party planner should be Paul Pratt, right?" After getting the assistant's nod, Ron continued, "Now tell him that Ron Lee Cooper wants to attend the party and bring 2 female companions. Hurry up." The assistant was intimidated by Ron's momentum, pulled the microphone, and whispered the name to his boss for a while. Ron was satisfied to see the young assistant's mouth opening wider and wider. "Sorry, Mr. Cooper, I will arrange for you to enter now, and Paul will come out to apologize to you in person later." The young assistant wisely led Ron to the security entrance. "So, can you please not bring a gun in? Paul specifically told me not to let you bring a weapon in." "Of course, how can you bring a gun to dance?" Ron opened his hands and let 2 staff members check him with metal detectors one after another. As expected, nothing was found, and the assistant's expression became particularly ugly. Because his boss had made it very clear on the phone that this person was always carrying a weapon, but he must not be allowed to bring the weapon in. He didn't want Ron to put the thing into any hole on his body again. "Can we go in?" Ron looked at his assistant with a smirk on his face. Of course, even the metal detector didn't find anything, so there was naturally no reason to continue blocking him. He could only let him in, but he still called 2 bodyguards to follow Ron closely. "Please come this way." Badgie walking through the security check channel, Ron was attacked on both sides of his face at the same time. Caroline and Max kissed him on the left and right sides of his face, which made him feel that he was one step closer to playing with 3 people. "If you hadn't come, I would have taken Caroline and disguised myself as a staff member to sneak in," Max said in surprise. "Ron, I didn't expect you to know the Party King Paul." "Party King?" Ron chuckled and shook his head. "So he has this nickname. I always thought his main business was to be a broker between various capital parties. I don't know him. It's just that when he forgets to pay taxes occasionally, I will kindly remind him." Of course, Ron's reminder can only be done in one way, which is to put the metal barrel into the other person's mouth or anus and rudely ask him when he can get the money. This is why Paul repeatedly emphasized that his assistant should check his weapons, especially after he had hemorrhoids recently. "Girls," Ron gently supported the waists of the 2 beauties, "I know you are here for business today, so you don't have to worry about me and go about your business. I wish you success." This gentlemanly performance once again won him 2 passionate kisses. Looking at the backs of the 2 women disappearing in the dance, Ron turned around and looked at the 2 bodyguards who followed him like prisoners with ill intentions. He didn't like being followed in this way, and he had to teach them a lesson. The 2 black men immediately felt their anuses tighten. "What are you doing?" Years of bodyguard career made them realize that Ron was not a character to be messed with at first sight. Ron spread his hands in a friendly manner. "I accidentally drank too much champagne. Can I go to the bathroom? Do you want to join me?" The 2 black guys looked at each other. "You only came in a few minutes? What kind of champagne are you drinking?" "Of course, sir." Frightened by the order on them, they still planned to follow. The party had just begun. Ron walked into the bathroom and found it empty, which suited his taste. When the 2 bodyguards followed him in, Ron did not walk towards the toilet, but turned around and looked at the 2 black guys, laughing. They were so scared. "What are you going to do? Do you know what a crow takes a plane?" Ron laughed evilly, and without waiting for their answer, he took a few steps back, and then stepped heavily on the ground in front of him with his other foot. His whole body immediately switched to the forward acceleration state. In just 6 steps, Ron had already exploded to the maximum speed, just after the 2 bodyguards were ready for defense. Ron jumped high in the horrified eyes of the 2 men, and his hands made a clasp and dig out their eyeballs. After attracting their attention, He immediately used his powerful waist and abdominal strength to lean his upper body back and kneel down quickly with his 2 knees. He knelt heavily on the chests of the 2 men. Crack! Ron seemed to hear the sound of his sternum breaking. The 2 bodyguards fell to the ground and could not stand up again. Ron stretched comfortably. I would have forgotten if you hadn't reminded me. Paul didn't pay enough taxes last year. It's a good time to work overtime. The bathroom door opened, and an old man walked in tremblingly. He was instantly shocked by the scene inside. The bathroom floor is too slippery. Be careful when walking. Stanley, my brother likes you very much. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.